Welcome, everybody. It should be fun. This is going to be kind of the haunting history of the CIA and their brainwashing experiments. Always a great topic. But yeah, if there's anything you guys have come across in a lot of your research, which I know you've been doing a lot of research, yeah, throw it in here or throw it in chat. Lord knows we have been experimented on now on a daily basis through our phones, right? Watching us. Yes, I do agree. The CIA should definitely be dismantled. I've always felt that way ever since I remember JFK saying that. We can have security other ways, But it is good to go to the past. Back to the past and see where it all started. That's always key for me. So I kind of understand, how did we get here? So this should be really fun. We are going to spend time on Sidney Gottlieb, and I'm going to go. I found a great video, actually. We'll watch that alongside, but it'll be really great. We can talk about it, learn something new. With a jellyfish. So cute. Okay, I'm getting distracted. Hey, Kristen. Good to see you. I'm glad I'm coming through. All right. Hi, guys. Some good questions over there, over in chat on YouTube. Yes. So, Kristen, am I saying it right? Kristen Dumb Defender. I hope I'm saying that right. Let me know. Oh, let's also fix my background. We have to be obviously cool here, right, guys? But you have a really good question. This is obviously a little side topic compared to MK Ultra, but I will talk about this for a minute. They say, ask the question, how does Nicki know? And I think you're talking about Nicki Minaj. And then they say, where does 1 million children go? Where do 1 million children go missing and why? These are all very good questions. So, I wanted to pull that up actually because it was a great post she did. And there's also another video I'll play of her real quick too. So she says, your favorite artist has been practicing rituals in satanic cult where they take babies from other countries and mutilate and kill them as a form of blood sacrifice to their god. You see, when your master is Satan, you must constantly shed blood. However, the jig is up. And yeah, this is something in a lot of my research into the Luciferian agenda, satanic cabal, is that they have holidays, you could call them, but there's days and times of each month, rituals, and sometimes you can get away with killing a chicken, but most of the time they prefer human. And it's crazy because they'll be like, oh, those are just isolated events, the satanic panic. That's what they wanted you to think. However, I do not think they're isolated at all. I've seen enough. I've seen too much. And yeah, so that being said, things are changing. And, I've been talking about this kind of stuff for a long time. I lost families and friends talking about this. I remember dropping that at one point, about Hillary Clinton with her campaign manager, Huma Abedin, and then her husband, Anthony Weiner, and but also then John Podesta, and really going into those things, talking about Hillary Clinton and Frazzle Drip, and it's old. This is old ancient practice of always, this is very old. The satanic occult of drinking blood of innocent. Jesus talks about it, goes back thousands of years, and it really never stopped. And I think that's what people are realizing now. It never stopped. Doesn't make it any better. Holy shit, right? But it makes sense, right? Patterns are key to everything, guys. I swear, it's like frequency patterns. I will die on this hill, and light and photons, and yeah, separate topic. But real quick, before I go to the MK Ultra stuff, guys. Oh, and please give me a thumbs up if you like the show. This was good. Actually, you know what? I don't know, because she posted a lot of these, so I know the one that I reposted is the one. So hold on, bear with me. Okay, so this is the one. So check out what she says here. This interview has not dropped yet. And she says, oh, well, actually, that's the late talk. Okay, we'll just play this and listen to what she says here concerning all of that.
You've been recently very vocal about politics and social issues. Was there a specific moment that flipped the switch for you? Was it Gavin Newsom? Was it Nigeria? What made you wake up, so to speak?
You know what, Katie? I think that people's steps are aligned. I used to always tell people this when I was growing up, but I had this strong premonition my whole life that I had a second job to do. And this was, by the way, this was before I even made it in rap. Something inside of me just told me I would have another thing to do. And so actually, the first time I said it out loud or texted it was during the last campaign. the presidential campaign, this last one, I saw something and I texted someone I knew right away. And I said, this is a mistake. And I also said, all of this is making me want to get into politics. So the last thing that really did it was me seeing certain things, the campaign, this recent campaign, presidential campaign, and knowing that I could help because the things that I was saying, it was happening. Like I was saying, oh, this is a bad idea, or this is a good idea, or and the things I was saying were coming to fruition. And so it made me think, oh, this is easy. I mean, if it's this easy, then maybe I should do it. And then there was something that happened a few months ago that if I wasn't going to do it before, something happened a couple months ago.
What happened?
I don't want to talk about it, but I'll say that sometimes people can push you so much that they push you all the way into your next calling, into your next blessing, into your next life. And that's what happened with me.
Wow. So there is keywords she uses there about sometimes people can push you so much that they push you all the way into your next calling. Oh, I think someone pushed her, right? Would chat agree? Because like she says it so nicely, and so but what happened a few months ago that made her go, all right, it reminds me of the Isaac Cappy scenario. So obviously everybody be praying for this woman, because those who speak truth, I talk about all the time here, those that speak truth will become an instant target for evil. And Satan will try to do things to you to discourage you from telling the truth or continuing to do what's right. Because it's really true. In the end of the day, it is a battle of good and evil. It is light versus darkness. Who are you serving? What master are you serving? I think it was Johnny Cash. Was it Johnny Cash, guys? He said you got to serve somebody. You could serve the devil or you could serve the Lord, but you got to serve somebody. Something like that. And that is accurate in this world right now. You can, and the ones that stay in the in-between at this moment in time, that's not so good either. Because so there's a moral issue. Like I was breaking this down on Brad and Abby Live, and I'll get to MK Ultra, guys. But basically, the left and the right used to be, they were probably still controlled sides, just controlled opposing sides so that the elites can do their thing. But they used to be pretty much morally sound. They were a little different. They were different in some things, but it went so bad, and follow me, that the left now has crossed that line of morals, of virtues, of things that shouldn't be political at all, like abortion. That shouldn't be a political subject. That should be a human topic, human life topic, subject that humans come together and decide. It shouldn't be the left believes this and the right, we're talking about killing. Okay. Just a lot. There's always a lot of things like the transgender thing and mutilation of children. That is wrong. You should be able to be the old school Democrat and Republican and both be like, what, that's the way it used to be. But so what happened was one side got hijacked, insanely hijacked, to push this new era of, you could call it sin, of they're a satanic cabal. Okay. So they want to slowly put all of their shit on everybody in this world. And Christians that see it, it touches them and we're like, oh, that's freaking evil. We don't want anything to do with that. So that's why we're usually the ones, like I said, that things come to us. However, when you are walking in the light and you're walking in the truth, there is nothing more empowering, nothing more beautiful. And that's why I'm so excited that Nikki is doing this. God bless her. We need more people that have been in her position that have probably seen shit or knew shit. Like I mentioned about Isaac Cappy, he, for one reason or another, Seth Green was like, hey, you want to see where we keep the kids? And then I don't know what all went down because Isaac Cappy wasn't super explanatory or super detailed, but it was enough for him to go, okay, fuck you guys. Tom Hanks is a pedophile. You're a pedophile. Everybody's a pedophile because you're all Luciferians, and that's pretty much the way they do it. And I am not suggesting to feel sorry for these people, but when you really look into it, it's just generational. As soon as they have a baby, this is so terrible, but the child is molested. And then, in the order, satanic order. And, but it's good. This is how our family works. And we're grooming you to be the next person in line and all this stuff and all their brainwashed, satanic, dark. It's just nasty. And so they just keep on, and they just keep on popping out, making more and more. And not everyone in Hollywood and not everyone in the music industry are them, the family. We'll call them the family. In fact, I want to read that book, the 13 Bloodlines of the Illuminati. That's a great book. I haven't read the whole thing at all. I've just flipped through it, and it's just like, oh my gosh, it's all here. But but anyways, not everybody in those areas are corrupt, and we need to remember that. And then, so when one speaks out or one stands up, we need to stand shoulder to shoulder with them. And not necessarily like, except like, let's say people don't like her music. Okay. Whatever. It doesn't mean you have to accept the music. You're accepting, you're standing with the person of standing up for moral virtues, I should say. And what will make mankind successful as to what will make man slowly degrade down into, I don't even know what they think we already are, filth, and all this stuff. But yeah, so I love it. I love that she's doing it, and she's a brave soul, and we need more of that. We freaking need more of that. Okay. So the title of this is, it's weird because it's like, is it a let's talk or is it a thing? I want to talk with you guys about it. So that's why I use that. But I do have this topic that I kind of want to go on because it's just like, I don't know. It's just something that has always intrigued me. It has just always made me know that the things that I have felt as a child are real. So for example, like, spirituality and how powerful our minds are, and how I always felt about plants, like they are alive, and all these things, you guys have followed my channel, I dive into all these type of topics. And so when I found that governments were running secret programs that they paid billions of dollars into, well, then I was like, okay, I guess that means that they are real, because if the government's doing it, like, right. So, Project Gateway is a great example of that. I'm not going to go into Project Gateway, but Gateway, it's a great declassified CIA read if you guys ever want to read it. Maybe I'll read it here one day. It's actually not that long. It's just like you're reading it, you're like, whoa. This poor CIA guy is tasked with writing up details of this operation they're doing to report back to Washington, right? Of course. And he's just like, well, it's just, how do I even put this on paper? I guess I'll just do the best I can. He goes, it's a combination between like hypnotic something techniques combined with Buddhism meditation techniques, combined with interstellar projection, astral projection, drug. It's like he's trying to break this all down, and I'm like, holy, what were the CIA up to? You know what I mean? It's just like, geez, man. So, but all that to say, it's really real to them. So that was always a cool little indicator to me that yes, those things are real. The spirit realm is real. Spirit realm / interdimensional, I believe, is real. our minds are way more powerful than we know. I think all I can think is somehow we're blocked. I don't know how. People go to the pineal gland thing. People go through that. We're going to go through this with the MK Ultra. Sidney Gottlieb himself was so intrigued by the power of the mind and what we can do. And of course, he used his weirdness to help CIA in their terrible experiments. Well, he kind of was the terrible experiment, but that'll be fun. We'll learn all about that. But yeah, so just, it's a crazy world we live in. But the one thing I know is I know nothing. and I think coming into the golden age, that's a good thing to feel that way, because we need to be excited for the truth and things that have been hidden from us. Technologies, I believe, that have been around for a long time, and they've just kept it for themselves. But not any longer. Well, I hope so. That's the dream. And I do know that Trump is a visionary, and people like Elon are visionaries, and we have even people in our community. They're very smart and brilliant and view the future as just beginning. So that's very exciting to have that outlook. So I see all of you beautiful people out there, and the physical is the illusion. That's an interesting thought. Yeah. I mean, well, it is a plane of existence, but is there another plane of existence that we are not experiencing? And if we're not experiencing it, does that mean it's not happening? You know, that's the whole thing. The tree falls out in the woods. Did it make a noise? Oh yeah, I definitely made a noise. But our ears weren't there to pick it up. So therefore, did it actually audibly make noise? It's like people like break all this crazy shit down. But I do believe that there's a lot of realities and things about even this reality that's been kept from us, secret, on purpose. And it spans across governments on the earth, religious groups. It, I believe, goes into even medical, giant, I'm talking like the top of the triangles for all of these industries. I think they are all in on it. That's my take. And that's what the Illuminati really is, the bloodlines of the Illuminati. So with that being said, we're going to dive into the beginning of everything. So if we want to understand CIA, if we want to understand MK Ultra and what the heck, we need to understand even where did the CIA come from? Like, what is it? And how did it even come to be? So before the CIA, there was it was called the Office of Strategic Services, and it was established on June 13th, 1942. This was during World War II. So there's their in, right? Just as here's a crisis, right? Oh, we could use this and insert this, and maybe we could have a forever I'm going to watch it thing going on, and do clandestine operations and things. So it was established on June 13th, 1942, during World War II as the United States' first centralized intelligence agency. It was created by President Franklin D. Roosevelt at the urging of William J. Wild Bill Donovan. I know I've heard that before in history. If you guys know more about that, you can let me know. Who became its director to coordinate espionage, sabotage, and intelligence gathering behind enemy lines. The role during World War II, the OSS conducted covert operations, including supporting resistant movements in occupied Europe and Asia, gathering intelligence on Axis powers, and developing special weapons and propaganda. It employed around 24,000 people. That was quite a bit from back then. At its peak, and was modeled partly after the British intelligence agency like M16 and SOE. After Japan's surrender in 1945, President Harry S. Truman disbanded the OSS on October 1st, 1945, due to concerns over peacetime intelligence agency and interagency rivalries. Okay, this is the best part. Do you guys remember that whole thing about, remember when DARPA had that program and it was called, it's in the Q drops. It basically is like, oh, crap. It was called like, I wish I could remember. Anyways, it was a tracking database for people, right? And it shut down. And then the very day it shut down, Facebook opened up, right? So it was called like Face Track or something. I can't remember what it was called, right? If you guys know what it's called, let me know. Right? So then the day it shut down, then Facebook comes and it's the same thing. Let's just track you and your families and have you write down where you live, what you were doing today, if you're happy, if you're sad. Let's see a photo of your location. Heck, let's just turn on tracking in general for Facebook. So it could just say, hey, I had a great sandwich at McDonald's. You know what I mean? Like, holy crap, man. It's wild how it evolved. But sidetracked. Okay. So think about that, right? How something shut down and the very next day something opened up. This is what happened. Truman and them, there was concerns. There was concerns over peacetime intelligence agency gatherings. So the public was like, let's not do this. We don't need the OSS anymore. The war's over. Okay, but guess what? The next year, in January 1946, Truman established the CIG as a temporary measure, just temporary, to centralize intelligence analysis and coordination under the National Intelligence Authority. The CIG absorbed many OSS personnel and assets, serving as a bridge to a permanent agency. Now, I guess you guys can guess what that is. So that happened, and that was 1946. And then the next year, the National Security Act of 1947, signed by same dude, Truman, July 26, 1947, transformed the CIG into, you guessed it, the Central Intelligence Agency. This act reorganized the U.S. national security structure, creating a National Security Council and the Department of Defense, which we call the Department of War now, while the CIA was tasked with coordinating national intelligence activities, including collection, analysis, and covert operations. I'm going to stop there for a minute. I got a kind of fun video. It's not crazy long, like 15 minutes. If it gets crazy drawn out, then I'll turn it off. I have an official OSS video that they put out during the time and showing how they do clandestine operations and how to be sneaky and how to put things in people's pill bottles and rummage through their shit. Yeah. So you guys check this out. It's great. It's old time, old fashioned, but this is a little nugget from that time in 1945 to 1947. So check this out. So much. It was called Lifelog. Pushpipe said it was called Lifelog. That's exactly what it was called. That was DARPA's program. Thank you so much.
This is neutral ground, breeding ground for spies and provocateurs, where intrigue and international plotting are nothing more than polite dinner conversation. And American agent John McDermott is very good at polite dinner conversation. McDermott is operating undercover as manager of an American oil company office abroad. His personality and appearance are perfect for the job.
I don't know. Little League. The internet can get to hear the whole thing through. I know this.
You know, she's very lonely.
Very awful.
Charming girl. Oh, Heinrich. Glad to see you. I'd like you to meet some friends of mine, Mr. Thayer, Mr. Pyle, Mr. McDermott.
How do you do?
Mr. Richter. Mr. Richter's of the Europa Optical Company in Zurich.
But operating in a neutral country calls for more than the social graces. Tonight, for instance, John McDermott leaves on a special mission in another town.
Hi, Margaret. Come on in.
Johnny, I can't stay a minute. I just dropped over to give you this by way of wishing you many happy returns.
Oh, you shouldn't have bothered.
Oh, don't be silly. When we get to New York, I'll give you a real birthday, okay? Listen, right now I've got to run.
Can't you stay for a cocktail? I still have time before the train leaves.
Sorry, some other time, thanks. Listen, have a good trip, and I'll see you Monday, huh?
Okay, I'll call you as soon as I get back.
Okay. Goodbye, honey.
Goodbye.
An important birthday present with many happy returns. This is vital material. Chemical formula photographed on microfilm. Instructions on the preparation of the chemical. And an actual sample of the chemical itself. But because it's secret business, it will have to wait in a secret place. McDermott knows that whenever possible, he should hide material outside his apartment, where its discovery would not incriminate him. But there's a train to make now. There's no time. Three objects to hide. 3 separate hiding places required, just to make it tougher. A few minutes to do the job. Work that calls for imagination.
Hold on, I gotta pause it for a second. Push Pipe says, if you want a little insight on my, I think this is probably the same conversation, on my MK, watch The Fringe 2010-ish. So maybe it's a movie. Oh man, I am all for like MK Ultra movies. Let's go. So I actually took a screenshot of that. I will definitely be checking that out. And guys, yeah, let me know if you have anything, like I see you throwing some things out there. Any cool videos that are related to this type of stuff, you could throw it in. And obviously, if it's appropriate, I'll definitely play it. So, but yeah, thank you so much. And I want to check that out. The Fringe, I think is what you called it. Let's just double check. Yep, The Fringe. Okay, let me play this.
Quickly improvised, easily accessible places are good for hiding secret material. This is not sleight of hand, nor is McDermott a magician. Only an experienced agent who knows that the same security measures apply in this neutral territory as in actual enemy area. To the well-trained agent, traps are a vital point on the espionage agenda. They may be quickly improvised, and to the man in the field, setting them soon becomes a reflex action. If a certain word in that letter is not flush against the envelope when he returns, then McDermott will know some enemy agent forgot to watch his P's and Q's. The toothpick has a new function in the agent's book. In the intriguing game of hide and seek, this is a good way of knowing whether the enemy suspects you and seeks what you hide.
Oh, freaking toothpicks! Dude, that's like of that movie. Mel Gibson, Conspiracy Theory. You guys remember? Love that movie. And then, so he's like leaving, and he has a toothpick, and he's twitching out, because he's freaking out. He's been in cattle trade, right? Sticks that toothpick on the top part so he knows when someone comes in or out. I had no idea that they had that in this. And dude, this is like some kind of right. It's like some kind of tutorial or something. Like I was watching it earlier, the first part, and I'm like, he's showing him like where you get the poison from the bottle, and this is how they hide it and transport. What the fuck is going on? Like, did the recruits sit and watch this? Because when I downloaded this, I downloaded this when I was making a short film about the OSS changing to the CIA and how the CIA's MK Ultra project, I believe, never stopped. It just expanded in mass to the masses through the TV flashing and the medicated drugs because we're depressed and the other additives in the foods, like a mass MK Ultra, right? So I downloaded this so I could just get that clip of him doing a clandestine operation. I never watched the full thing. So it's like I'm watching this for the first time. And what the frick, man? So anyways, the toothpick thing, legendary. We all need to start sticking toothpicks in our doors. That way we know if the spooks are there.
Operator, 1005A3. Hello, is this you, Gruber? Richter here. I have just met a certain gentleman named John McDermott. McDermott. Monterey Arm. Will you arrange an interview, please? Yeah.
Just John McDermott going about his banking. He finances himself for this mission from his own private bank under a tombstone. Large amounts of money create suspicion if found on your person or in your apartment. They should be hidden outdoors, in public places, whenever possible.
What the heck was that about, guys? Sorry about my jumping around screen. I'm trying to rearrange these things. But he was like, he funds his own mission by behind the tombstone. I mean, somebody gave him that cash, man. This is showing you what they were doing back then. This is 1945 to 47. Holy schnips, dude. Okay, it was worth it for that exchange right there. Pass him the key. Oh, he's gonna freaking snoop it. This is spy war right here.
There are several rules which every agent, even a mediocre one, should follow in a house search. Our friend Herr Richter has forgotten a few.
Oh no, Richter, man, he's forgetting his stuff. He's forgotten a few.
In a surreptitious search, the agent should never disturb anything, no matter how insignificant.
You're messing up, Richter. Messing up. I could be way better at it than him. What about you guys? Yeah, dude, black and white films were always awesome. They are. They really are. I agree. Wait, what did he do? Hold on, I gotta... Oh, can I rewind that? Okay, hold on, guys. Oh, oh, oh. So he smelled that one. Oh yeah, this guy sucks at it, man. I'd know somebody was there with enough of this. Maybe. I don't know. Would you know he was there by now? Like, let's say, at this point in time, did he rummage enough? I think the toothpick would have fallen, right? Freaking toothpick. I don't know, this guy's being way... Well, that's where he put the note in that book. This is it. That's the one. Oh, it's funny. It's called This Is It. Yep, and that's how they communicate.
He should never damage a lock. It's equivalent to leaving a calling card. In this game, haste makes waste, which he may pay for with his life.
That was stupid, Frankie. I knew it. He blew it, guys. He freaking blew it. He used his freaking toothpick like an idiot.
He must learn to distinguish between important and unimportant material.
Oh, that's the paper that he pulled out. Oh, he better not put it all the way back in. Yeah, holy balls, Batman. I agree.
Above all, he must beware of traps.
Yeah, traps. He said that trap. Watch out, bro. Oh, now they know he was there. You got screwed, dude. Superman comic, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Unless the agent is rushed for time, he should never make a superficial search. That's almost worse than no search at all, since he runs the risk of being uncovered without uncovering anything.
Exactly. You're stupid, man. You're an idiot. They all have cigarettes and stuff. And like, I think he used that cigarette in the tray so that he knows that it flipped or something. Now the American agent comes home, sees his freaking toothpick fell. It's supposed to make us like the spook.
Hi, Margot. Yeah, I just got back. I think we've got that contract if we want it. Yeah, I'm happy about it, too. Say, would you be interested in a rare edition of Plato's Republic at $5? Good. I'll bring it along when I see you. Okay. Goodbye now.
So the first thing I noticed was that sprung trap, and I thought you might have some idea about the critter what sprung it.
The town's loaded with critters, but that sounds like a new species. Only new species I know is a guy named Heinrich Richter. You know him?
Richter. Sure, works with some Swiss optical company.
That's the guy. While you were out of town, we picked up some more dope on him.
Look, get me Henderson and Stewart, and I'll go over this Richter's room.
Okay, he's at the Hotel Metropole, room 317.
But first, McDermott will make sure he finds Richter out. The infantry calls it reconnaissance. The agent calls it casing the joint. In this business, every house search begins with a reconnaissance. To deal with the enemy, you must first know your enemy.
Oh no, Richard. I love how he said you must know your enemy. Oh, hold on. There I am. Okay, there's such good comments in here. I gotta say hi for just a minute. And Brad, I saw you in there. Brad, are you still here? Are you recording or are you free? Let me know. Let me know. And I see Unleashing Spirit Warriors here. Good to see you. And Miss Freedom Fighter, so good to see you. Push Pipe, yes, he forgot the freaking toothpick. And I like this comment here. Let's see. Did I put on the top? Okay, yeah. The tactic. So this is by Unleashing Spirit Warriors. The tactics of the real enemy have not changed much over the centuries. Just the way he gets people to use the culture and tech of the day. All about deception and control of the enemy. Yeah, dude. And this how it goes. Things have not changed at all. And even though it's black and white, it's still all true to this day. So it's so wild. Brad, know your enemy. You're here. Oh, you're recording. Okay, you're still recording. Nice. Nice. Mr. Peanut Butter says, nice. Okay, here we go. I'm going to play the rest of this. We have a little bit more, but I knew you guys would enjoy it. It's so great. So let's see what happens to Richter. And I like how they're like, the enemy calls it reconnaissance. The agent calls it case in the joint. Like they were trying to make it like cool. Right? Okay, I'm gonna play it.
An agent is posted in such a position that he can warn McDermott in case Richter returns unexpectedly. To avoid searching something twice while another item goes unnoticed, the room is divided into 2 zones, one for each agent. And the way these zones are covered marks the difference between a good search, such as this one, and a futile one, such as Richter's. Here, everything, no matter how innocent it may appear, is carefully examined.
Yeah, see, because that's the right way to examine a book. Okay, we've learned a very valuable lesson tonight, guys. There could be these little envelopes. I don't know if you saw it from the first one, but there's like a top part where the pages become 2 pages, like an envelope, and you slip the thing down the top. Yeah, well, Richter didn't look. This guy did. This guy nailed it. Oh yeah, never fuss with
If
the
the
logs.
agent takes anything at its face value, then chances are it's the agent who will be taken. The articles which seem solid deserve special attention.
Bro, but you can't fix that later. Why are they getting these little snippets? Are these little messages? Oh, he's good. I mean, he'd have to do it longer than that for it to really stick well. I think I could be able to tell that that was popped off.
Now, kids, nobody do this at home. This is for informational purposes only.
When it is necessary to disturb any arrangement of articles, special care must be taken to replace them in the same position. A piece of paper, a ruler, or even a book may be used as a straight edge in measuring between items. Be on guard against traps. Don't liquidate yourself by selling the enemy short.
I mean, I'm feeling like I'm learning some valuable information here, right? The number one is don't fall for traps. If you're rummaging through someone's closet, put it so bad. Gotta check into that doily. Don't sell yourself short. Okay, I think that this is now Richter's place, right? The other guy. So he's searching his place. It's like, I'm showing you the right way to do it, right? But she's gonna find something besides that piece that he already found. Ah, see? What is that? Put everything back, bro. Just some spooks in your room, nothing to worry about. I've done this hundreds of times. Like when they film this, these are probably the real deal. They look like they know what it's doing. I think these dudes are real because, like, even that, like, they're checking the ground molding. He's knocking on the. I think what they said, they're like, at this part, they're like, just go in, boys, and do your thing. We'll film ya. Serve the country. I like the dresser. I do like the dresser. That's nice. Oh, okay. I looked down the chat and I heard that. I was like, somebody found a secret compartment.
You may have thought that fake panels exist only in the minds of fiction writers. But wherever you find the enemy, you'll probably find something like this.
What is it? Bizarberg? What was that? Dude, did you hear he called him over? Wait, I'm gonna rewind it. I have to. I can't help myself. Oh, psst. Okay. It was more like a. Psst. I don't know if you actually did that. A good agent doesn't tarry. Oh, that was loud.
Armed with the knowledge of what's in Richter's hands, McDermott is now complete master of the situation. He can alter his plans or his plots wherever necessary.
Crouching tiger, hidden dragon. Yes.
Hey, get a load of this. German jailed on housebreaking charge. Heinrich Richter, 37, German national who gave his address as a Hotel Metropole, was sentenced to 2 years imprisonment today after a federal court found him guilty of 9 charges of housebreaking. Richter was apprehended in the act of entering a hotel room occupied by a prominent member of the British Diplomatic Corps. The police said they were informed of his criminal record by an anonymous telephone call last week.
Anonymous. Him. Frickin' Richter. Frickin' Richter. Is it still there? Okay, hold on. I gotta pull this down. Remove. Okay, so I hope you guys learned a valuable lesson about how to rummage through people. You know, it was great because when I was playing that, I was like, oh, this is just a whole scene done in quiet of them showing you how to search a house. Like, what the heck is that about, man? That was good. Okay. Sorry, I get so excited. I don't know why, but it's just like when you find those gems, they're great, right? Yeah, so I see all you guys over in chat, and it looks like so good to see you guys over at YouTube. Yeah, okay. Wish I could live back. I wish I could live in the black and white times. I thought you were gonna say live in the back and the black and the white. Oh my gosh. Crouching down quietly. Yes, I had seen that. I don't know why I said crouching tiger, hidden dragon. I know, too funny. We're having a great time tonight. We're having a great time. Okay. So you just watched the spy training OSS video, the Office of Strategic Services, one of their like spy training videos to teach the recruits to not be like Richter. Because dang it, if you freaking, it's the toothpick, bro. So we all learned the lesson. It's funny, just the other day, Brad bought toothpicks. Is Brad a secret agent? The plot thickens. No, I'm telling you, though, he really did buy toothpicks, and he put them up in the thing. Oh, my goodness. Oh, I hope he's not watching right now. I think he's, oh my gosh. Dude, I'm telling you. So this is something. Pay attention to the toothpicks. Where they going? Where they coming? What's happening to them? Are they broken? Do you see a broken toothpick in your doorwell? Is it called a doorwell? I think it's called doorwell. May have been somebody there. May have been somebody rummaging. We don't know. All right. Now, this is a crazy freaking... it's funny. Maybe that's why I like the CIA, is because they're freaking nuts. So we're going to go to the next part of this crazy story. The CIA became, right? And I could go through the whole history of how that happened and all this stuff, but we're going to focus on something here. Okay, and let me track back to see when the CIA was the one. Hold on. Bear with me. Hold on. We're gonna get to it. It's about LSD. It's about LSD. Okay. Okay, here we go. Okay, so what we were just watching, right? 19 what did I say? That was from 1945 to 1947. Now, 1953, something happened, and I won't get to that because we need to get to what happened before that happened. So, in this whole story of the CIA's dream to do mind control and control people, they actually figured out quite a bit of things that are intriguing to do with the mind and meditation and stuff. But they also used a lot of drugs, like a lot of drugs. So that, my cover photo that I have for this broadcast here, where somebody's putting the drops into another person's mouth, that is, I believe it might be LSD or a concoction of LSD and a few other things that they would mix it with. And those are both CIA agents giving it to each other. They got so ridiculous in their own program that they were dosing each other for fun and all these things. So we're going to get to that in a great video. So now, this all started. The golden drug for MK Ultra control, MK Ultra mind control, they found was LSD. And we're going to go to the beginning of how LSD happened, and then also the acquisition of the CIA's just buying out a crap ton of LSD. Yeah, that did happen. And we're going to get to it. This is great. Okay. So, the accidental discovery of LSD. Albert Hofmann, a Swiss chemist working at the Sandoz pharmaceutical company in Basel, Switzerland, first synthesized lysergic acid dithethylamide LSD 25 on November 16th, 1938. So this is 1938. What we just watched with those spy guys was 47. Okay. So they're around, the OSS is around, and things are happening, and these things get discovered. And it wasn't much longer after that. The CIA is like, I want that. I want that. Okay. So it was discovered. He was researching derivatives of lysergic acid from ergot, a fungus that grows on rye, with the goal of creating a respiratory and circulatory stimulant similar to other compounds like Sparky, come here. Where are you? Oh, there he is. Sorry, the dog. Similar to other compounds like nicotinamide. I don't know what that is. The initial synthesis showed some effects in animal tests, like restlessness, but nothing particularly promising for medical use. So the compound was shelved for 5 years. Okay, so they discovered it. They gave it to some animals. They were restless. Oh my gosh, this is crazy. That means those animals were tripping. Okay, so that was 1938. And so in now, 1943, so now that we're getting close to that time, Hoffman had a hunch to revisit LSD 25 and resynthesize it on April 16th. During the process, he accidentally absorbed a tiny amount, estimated at around 20 micrograms, because they had to figure out, like, how much dropped on your arm, bro? Like, what happened there? So, estimated around 20 micrograms through his skin, likely via his fingertips, while handling the substance. This marked the first known human exposure to LSD's psychedelic effects. He soon felt disoriented and left the lab early, experiencing vivid hallucinations at home. Okay, first of all, I remember hearing this story. It's a great story. Can you imagine? You're like, oh yeah, I'm doing this, for good purposes, to figure out a way to help people with influenza, a terrible, virus, and to help them breathe and survive. Great cause. Like, little did he know that day that he went into work, he was gonna come back dripping, apparently. Okay, so he goes home, intrigued and suspecting the compound was responsible. So he was probably like, "What happened to me?" Hoffman decided to conduct a deliberate self-experiment 3 days later. So he thought about this for 3 days. It probably happened to me. He's like, whoa. Like, a few days went by, he's like, what the frick was that? Like, that was crazy, right? Okay. So he's thinking about it, and he's going to do a self-experiment. So 3 days later, on April 19th, 1943, they say now celebrated as Bicycle Day. So this must be like a day, like if people that take LSD, they celebrate or something, which is funny. He ingested what he thought was a conservative dose of 250 micrograms. Okay, guys, I don't know. Hold on, I don't know how much that is, so we need to Google. We need to Google this. I grokked it. This is why it's great. Okay, so he thought it was conservative, 250 micrograms. So let's look this up. Okay, is 250 micrograms of LSD a high amount? I should say, like, to take as a human or something. Hold on. We're going to figure this out. Yes, 250 micrograms of LSD is considered a high dose. Threshold dose effects can be felt with doses as low as 15 to 20 micrograms. Oh no. Okay, hold on. Typical recreational dose. Wait, let's pull this up so you guys can see this guy. Oh no, what did he do? What did Hoffman do? Okay, standard. Okay, I'm gonna get in trouble for doing a stream about this. This is for research purposes. Okay. Typical recreational dose. A standard hit or tab of LSD found on the street usually contains between 50 to 150 mcg, often 100 mcgs. Dude, he took 200 high doses. Okay. Doses in the range of 150 to 250 micrograms are generally considered high and can lead to more intense effects, including potential ego dissolution. Dissolution. Oh, I've heard about this. What if somebody in chat here says, what if LSD is Lucifer, Satan, devil? Yeah, could be. All I know is that this is the one we're going to get to why they use this in MK Ultra, because this drug is so wonderful for controlling people and programming people, wiping their minds, putting something in, refreshing them. And we're going to get to that. But this is kind of understanding. This is like a fun little side topic here. So, okay. So he had, a really bad dose. Oh, wow. And an increased risk of anxiety or bad trips. So 150, 250. So he had 250. So let's go back to his story. Holy cow. Okay. So on this day, he ingested what he thought. Let's remove this. Make sure I have it. Sorry, I lost my spot. Okay. He ingested what he thought was a conservative dose of 250 micrograms dissolved in water. But it turned out to be extraordinarily potent. The effects hit hard, leading to intense perceptual disorientations. Distortions. anxiety, and euphoria. Due to wartime restrictions on cars, he rode his bicycle home from the lab, accompanied by his assistant, in what became one of the most famous trips of psychedelic history. I didn't know any of this, guys. Oh, it's so funny. So they call it Bicycle Day. This accidental discovery transformed LSD from an obscure lab compound into a substance with profound psychological effects, sparking decades of research, cultural shifts, and controversy. All right. Now, there are notes that Dr. Hoffman wrote himself, and I got them. So I'm going to just read a few of them because they are great. So this, I think, is from his accidental exposure. Okay. So I need his actual, okay. Okay. So this is what he says. Feeling a remarkable restlessness combined with slight dizziness. At home, I lay down and sank into a unpleasant, intoxicated-like condition, characterized by an extremely stimulated imagination. I love how he talks. In a dreamlike state, with eyes closed, I found the daylight to be unpleasantly glaring. I perceived an uninterrupted stream of fantastic pictures, extraordinary shapes with intense kaleidoscopic play of colors. After some 2 hours, this condition faded away. So that's what he said. And he also noting that the hallucinations surged upon him like kaleidoscopic like play of colors. All right. And then another, so this was from his intentional dose day, the bicycle day. At 4:20 p.m., he took 250 micrograms. By 5 p.m., his notes read. So 40 minutes later. Beginning dizziness, feeling of anxiety, visual disorientations, symptoms of paralysis. Oh my gosh. Desire to laugh. The journal entries trail off here as the effects intensified. Oh no. During the bicycle ride home, I had the feeling that I was not moving from the spot, although my colleagues said I was moving at a fast pace. My field of vision fluctuated and swam like an image in a distorted mirror. He says he became increasingly anxious, perceiving everyday objects as warped. The anxiety peaked with delusions. He thought at one point his neighbor was a, quote, malevolent witch. Oh no. Who knows she may have been? Oh my gosh. What was that thing? I was just watching a thing about a neighbor. I'll find it. It was so funny. I'll find it in a minute. So he thought his neighbor was a malevolent witch. Feared he was going insane or poisoned. He called a doctor who found only dilated pupils. Gradually, the terror subsided into wonder. Little by little, I could begin to enjoy the unprecedented colors and plays of shapes that persisted behind my closed eyes. Kaleidoscopic, fantastic images surged in on me, altering, variegated, opening and then closing themselves in circles and spirals, exploding into colored fountains, rearranging and hybridizing themselves in constant flux. That's so wild. Added 2 days later, home by the bicycle. He wrote that. Okay, this was funny. This is what he wrote. Home by the bicycle, most severe crisis. Oh no. Although it says here, the next morning he was refreshed and he did write in his journal, the world was as if it was newly created, end quote. Wow. Okay. So somebody was tripping. But this is the thing. This is the sad thing. This kind of whatever continued on into the CIA itself, and they were like eventually drugging each other and all kinds of crazies. So, okay, now we're going to get from there to the CIA. So how did the CIA acquire all of this stuff, this LSD? So it says in the early 1950s, as part of the COVID war era, Project MK Ultra, a covert CIA program aimed at developing mind control techniques, became obsessed with LSD's potential for interrogation, behavior modification, and psychological warfare. Yeah. So there you go. They're like, let's get a hold of some of this business. Oh, hold on. Oh, I see. Okay. I was like, is my thing bigger? I have like mini screens. So you guys are so awesome, by the way. I hope you've been enjoying this. This is so funny and wild and crazy. But we're going to get to some good stuff still, because after all of this, we're going to get to Sidney Gottlieb. We're going to get to Sidney Gottlieb. And I'm going to play a great video by the, his name is Stephen Kinzinger, I think is how you say his name. It's Kinzer. Oh, it's Kinzer. That's what it is. Stephen Kinzer. And he wrote a book called Poisoner in Chief, and it's all about Sidney Gottlieb. But I found a great video of him talking about it, his book, and just it's great highlights and just histories of what we're just learning here to the next step. So, but how did we get to the LSD being the CIA's favorite tool for mind control? So it says, fearing the Soviets might weaponize it, MK Ultra director Sidney Gottlieb, oh, they're so funny, it just mentioned him right here, because I hadn't even read down this far. He arranged for the CIA to purchase the world's entire known supply of LSD. Yes, you guys heard it. The entire known supply of LSD on the earth at that time in 1953. Our CIA, United States CIA, said, it's mine. Give it to me. Okay. So they purchased it from the Sandoz laboratories in Switzerland in 1953. Initial intelligence suggests Sandoz had 10 kilograms, enough for about 100 million doses. But it turned out just to be 10 grams, so not a big deal. Still, it was insane. I think at one point somebody figured it out that they had enough at one point to make the whole country trip if they wanted. It was, they said, I think they had figured it out. It was about the size that you could fit in a regular suitcase. That was enough LSD to poison the whole country, through like water or whatever, to have the whole country have a trip. And believe it or not, it is written in their documents as a form of warfare. Like literally, like, let's say that you wanted to, like, theoretically go invade a country. Okay, let's just put LSD in all their water supplies so the whole country has lost its readiness and they're all tripping for 12 hours and we go in. Like, that is actually a CIA plan. Like, these people, it just blows my mind. It just blows my mind. Okay. So initial intelligence suggested that, or so later they found out it turned out just to be 10 grams, which I think that's probably a good amount. The CIA paid $240,000 for it, equivalent to over $4 million today, and sent agents to Basel to secure it. So here you go, guys. Just think of it for what it is. At our time, 1953, our CIA went over and bought 10 grams of LSD. And everybody's okay with it? Just throwing it out there. Like, what? Okay. So they went over and they got it. This stockpile fueled early MK Ultra experiments, including non-consensual dosing of civilians, prisoners. Let's see, the prisoner ones are bad. And even CIA personnel. When supplies ran low, the CIA contracted U.S. pharmaceutical company Eli Lilly, I hope I'm saying that right, to develop a method for synthesizing LSD in large quantities, ensuring a domestic source by 1954. Sandoz, Hoffman's employer, had been the sole producer since 1940s, making Switzerland the epicenter of the drug's early distribution. The program's excesses, including unethical human testing, were partially exposed in the 1970s through congressional hearings, leading to its official termination, which I think it just, remember we were talking about earlier how they just swap. Oh, that's okay. That program has quit. Oh, Facebook, right? You know, it's like, okay. So I don't think it quit. I think it just changed names like it did. Project MKUltra was called, well, it was kind of like a side project called Project Artichoke that really was specifically working with those things for interrogation. And that was insane and terrible. Terrible experiments they did on people. Ugh. But it is what it is. So now we're going to have some fun, guys. Well, you know, I actually have to, I'm going to play this video. It'll be great because I'm going to go get some coffee while I do it. Okay, video file. Now, this isn't too long, and
in the 1950s and 60s,
let me pause it here. See how long is it? 8. Okay, so 9 minutes. And after this, I will go into Sidney Gottlieb. They will mention Sidney Gottlieb because he is like the mad scientist of the whole thing. But this is a great, just kind of, let's tell you about MKUltra, kind of compress it. And I figured this would be really good for all you guys to watch. If you don't know about the program and what they did, and yes, it's real, it exists. The people that did survive have come out and talked about it. You will find out things insane, like our CIA had safe houses outside of the U.S. Don't quote me on this, but I think there was at least like 150 other sites outside of the CIA, and it was to the point where they had they were, let's just say for what it is, mad scientist laboratories where they took whoever, what they considered the filth of the earth. A lot of times it'd be people like, you know, hookers, and this is from third world countries, people that they said nobody would miss, and they would take them and they would do terrible things to them because, you know, if you know about Project Paperclip, that's why I have that here in the title, is we brought a bunch of mad scientists over and employed them and wanted to know all their techniques and methods. That's our CIA for you. So if they were having a great time with some, you know, Nazi psycho mad scientists and wanted to learn their techniques, well, that's pretty evil, I feel, from the very beginning. So again, if I had my way, I think the CIA should definitely go. It needs to go. I understand the idea about intelligence gathering and safety and things like that, but I think that can be done possibly through possibly, like, I don't know, maybe not the Department of War, but, you know, it could be a thing, but it should not be this separate entity that just does these black projects that nobody knows. Like that should be done. It should be gone, done. Nobody needs it. America was just great without CIA. So that's my take of it. But I hope you guys enjoy this, and I will be back. It's a pretty good, pretty good, simple run through.
In the 1950s and 60s, the CIA conducted a sinister secret program to master the science of mind control. While the secret studies might sound like the stuff of horror science fiction, sometimes the truth is even stranger. Beginning in 1945, American and British organizations teamed up to gather as much military, scientific, and technological research as possible throughout occupied Germany. As German research facilities were seized, Allied force groups began to confiscate war-related documents and materials and interrogate scientists. One particular document was the Ausenberg List, a catalog of scientists and engineers working at the service of the Third Reich. Run by the Joint Intelligence Objectives Agency, or JIOA, the covert operation dubbed Operation Overcast, then renamed Operation Paperclip, involved having 1,600 German scientists and their families brought to the US during the Cold War to work on America's behalf. The objective was to use German intelligence to develop America's arsenal of biological and chemical weapons, ensuring that they didn't fall in the hands of the Soviet Union. While President Harry Truman sanctioned the operation, he forbade recruiting any Nazis or Nazi supporters. In spite of this, the JIOA bypassed this directive by hiding any incriminating evidence of possible war crimes from some of the scientists' records. Concerned that the Russians had developed mind control programs, the CIA wanted to find out how US spies would hold up if it was used against them. With this in mind, Operation Bluebird, later called MKUltra, was created by Dr. Sidney Gottlieb. Despite going against the Nuremberg Code, which prohibits experimentation on human subjects without their consent, MKUltra was conducted in secrecy for over a decade and experimented with, quote, the use of biological and chemical materials in altering human behavior. This amounted to many experiments being carried out on an estimated thousands of US subjects, many of whom did not know exactly what they were signing up for. Some of the subjects included sex workers, prisoners, and people with terminal illness, and many of the experiments involved the administration of illegal drugs. According to journalist Stephen Kinzer, who wrote the book Poisoner-in-Chief about Gottlieb, Gottlieb wanted to create a way to seize control of people's minds, and he realized that it was a two-part process. First, you had to blast away the existing mind. Second, you had to find a way to insert a new mind into that resulting void. And what did Dr. Sidney Gottlieb believe was the best way to blast away the existing mind? A newly created drug called LSD. After its discovery in 1943, psychiatrists researched the drug for possible use for depressed, psychotic, and epileptic therapies. In the early 1950s, Gottlieb arranged for the CIA to buy the world's entire supply of LSD. Once he had collected all of the LSD on US soil, he began distributing it under the guise of bogus foundations, sending it to hospitals, clinics, prisons, and other credible institutions to begin administering it in a series of research projects. Experts say that while Gottlieb technically reported to Richard Helms and CIA director at the time Alan Dulles, in essence, he operated almost completely without supervision, in partly because his bosses didn't want to know the details. This resulted in Gottlieb never having to file serious reports when experiments ended in tragedy, and the experiments often did. In 1963, CIA Inspector General John Vance learned of the program. His office reported, quote, the concepts involved in manipulating human behavior are found by many people, both within and outside the agency, to be distasteful and unethical. As a result of this report, Project MKUltra's operations were slowly scaled back. Eventually, Gottlieb decided that LSD was not useful and that mind control was not possible. The program ended, and in 1973, CIA Director Richard Helms ordered that all documentation from Project MKUltra be destroyed. But while most of the records were destroyed, information on the project remained in some 8,000 pages of financial documents that were accidentally left over. These, along with witness testimonies, would piece together the sordid history of MKUltra. A 1985 Supreme Court document identified MKUltra as 162 separate projects under one umbrella, many of which were conducted at universities and research foundations that did not even know they were taking part in a CIA experiment. Taking place all over the country, the experiments used LSD, barbiturates, hypnosis, and biological agents, and resulted in some unspeakable horrors. In one instance, a mental patient in Kentucky was continuously fed LSD for 174 days. And while nearly every part of the MKUltra experiment is easily viewed as horrifying, nothing is so stomach-turning and alarming as the death of Frank Olson. On November 28, 1953, government scientist Frank Olson jumped from, or was pushed, from a high-level window at the Hotel Statler in New York City. The fall killed him, and the CIA claimed he jumped from the window, committing suicide due to work-related stress. In his life, Olson was recruited to work for the Army's biological lab in 1950 to develop aerosol weapons that could be transmitted through air particles. During visits to warfare research centers in UK, Paris, Norway, and West Germany, it is said that he witnessed extreme interrogations in which the CIA committed murder using biological weapons that Dr. Olson had developed. On November 24th, he told his division chief that he was resigning. His chief then suggested he head to New York for psychological treatment. The day after Thanksgiving, Olson called home saying he was feeling better. Olson would die later that evening. While his family accepted the explanation from the CIA that his death was the result of a stress-induced suicide, they changed their mind when in 1975 details of Project MKUltra were made public. An investigation by the family would show that the window of the hotel was too small for Olson to have jumped out himself. Later in the 70s, the CIA admitted that Olson had been drugged, and President Gerald Ford apologized to the family, but the cause of the death remained a mystery. In 1974, Seymour Hersh exposed the MKUltra program when he wrote about it for the New York Times. In 1977, a Senate committee conducted hearings about the project. They noted that there were effectively very few medical pre-screening procedures in place for subjects targeted in the program. Moreover, the report states, at least one death, that of Dr. Olson, resulted from these activities. The agency itself acknowledged that these tests made little scientific sense. The agents doing the monitoring were not qualified scientific observers. The test subjects were seldom accessible beyond the first hours of the test. In a number of instances, the test subject became ill for hours or days, and effective follow-up was impossible. The committee decided that the victims of MKUltra should be notified, but finding them was quite difficult since the CIA had destroyed much of the project's records. While lawsuits were filed and court cases heard demands for restitutions for victims and more information be released, ultimately little was done. According to San Francisco Weekly, only 14 people were actually notified, even though potentially thousands were exposed to MKUltra experiments. In 1994, Frank Olson's son had his father's body exhumed. A new investigation showed that Frank Olson had suffered a blow to the head before falling to his death, but a New York District Attorney investigation showed inconclusive results. The family reached a settlement with the U.S. government. While so little of what actually went on as part of the MKUltra experiment is known today, the experiments have become intertwined with pop culture. Not only have the experiments inspired media such as The Manchurian Candidate, American Ultra, and Stranger Things, many prominent authors and artists like Ken Kesey, Allen Ginsberg, and Robert Hunter, lyricist for the Grateful Dead, were not only inspired by LSD, but originally got it from MKUltra experiments. Interestingly enough, while at this point universally condemned, this secret Cold War government experiment known as MKUltra has resulted in effects that have been seen by a lot more people than will ever know the project existed.
So that was like a little brush you up on it. And yeah, Manchurian Candidate. Yep. It was funny. I watched that. The new one that was still made in like 2000 or maybe 1990 something. I don't know. It has Denzel Washington in it. But anyways, it's really, really good. They did a good job. And yeah, it does go into that. And it's funny when we were watching, Stranger Things, when that had come out, when this was, the first series, season, whatever, I was like, this is MKUltra 100%, 100%. Like, it's like, I don't know. It's like, oh yeah, she's in the room. Like everybody knows what they know, right? She's in the room and they want her to crush the can or something, whatever. And it reminded me of the experiments when the CIA would have the one person in the room and the other person, and they would look at the card, like the Zinner cards, like they're looking at, let's say, a circle. And then the person in the other room, the one with the gift or whatever, is supposed to be like, which one are they looking at? So, yeah, dude, that stuff is so freaking real. And yeah, and so the CIA tried to get rid of all that, the documentation, but some stuff still remained, including people that had firsthand experiences that maybe talked about it or wrote it down or told family members. And that's going to lead us into the next part that, again, it's Stephen Kinzinger. They mentioned him in that video. He wrote the book Poisoner in Chief, and it's just really good. And it tells you, it basically describes what you think happened, but even darker, and based on what he can get from all of the research, which took, God bless him, man, because the CIA really loves to cover their tracks, so it's not easy to get all these things. And I saw somebody in here earlier say, like, this MK Ultra stuff looks like something that was in the Epstein documents. If you're still in chat, let me know. If you found some kind of MK Ultra-ish thing in the Epstein documents, let me know. I had been going through them myself. There's just so many, just typing in words and names and things like that. There's a lot of repeats I find. So it's kind of irritating going through them. But there is some things definitely in there. But the whole thing about Epstein that I've noted that weirdness too is when the FBI supposedly raided Epstein's place on the island, there was that room that had the dental chair with all the dental things. Like, that felt like what the heck to me. In fact, I guess it's kind of maybe bad. I don't know. Hold on. See if I can share this video file. No, I need to share. Nope. Hold on. I'm trying to see if I can share something here. Oh, I guess I can't freaking share it. Let's try one more way here. Stop screen. Oh, I have to stop this screen. I see what I have to do. 1 minute. Bear with me, guys. Just a minute here. Remove from studio. Okay. So I know it's here. Share screen. Oh, here we go. Thank goodness. I knew I could do it. Okay. It's funny because I've had an Epstein folder for a long time, right? So I guess that is kind of graphic, but you can see here, if I click it, I guess it'll open up separately. Let's see if I can make this bigger. This is the weird experiments. Do you see this? And that's Epstein. And this full depth picture, they have this woman, she's like tied down. And this is from a long time ago. These are from the other types of dumps and things that people put out. But yeah, dude, he's done some weird things as far as experimenting. And I think that chair in that room is something weird too. And who knows? Because, and especially when you get people drugged up, like the Diddy party scenario type of thing, you can make them do anything. You can make them be drones. That's what I found out when I was looking into the satanic cults, is they do that all the time. Do you know that in like the satanic cults, the thing that really stood out to me is they have their, what do they call them? They're nurses. In real life, they're just nurses. Oh, practitioner. They call them the practitioners. That's what they are. And basically, they're nurses, doctors that you would know, but they're in the witch group. They're in the witch covens. They're in the cabal. They're in the cults, the Freemasons, whatever you want to call it. And they use their knowledge and abilities to administer drugs and stuff for the cult, for the order. And they, according to whistleblower Fiona Barnett, they will hypnotize and drug children and use them in satanic ritual sacrifice. I mean, it's the worst you could imagine. And it is interesting when you look into the CIA. There is a lot of interesting connections with the CIA and the satanic people and things. And there's a lot of crossover, a little too much, I feel. So evil loves evil, right? So yeah, it's crazy. Okay. So, yeah, Epstein Island, P. Diddy did nothing. Yeah. Healthcare system is crazy, scary. It is. After COVID, it has been. Until the evilness that they did to the world, like the global cabal, including, Jeffrey Epstein would be one of them, but along with Bill Gates, right? Bill Gates had an STD and was talking to Jeffrey Epstein, telling him how he's secretly poisoning his wife. Holy, this is the man that was out there on the global stage, investment in Pfizer and all these vaccines. And if we do a really good job, everybody's going to get vaccinated. And like, who is this man? Why are we even listening to him? Nobody voted for him. Like, he doesn't even have a degree. Like, right? Not that that means anything these days, in my book. I think knowledge is way more important than sitting behind a silly desk and getting like brainwashed by freaking communist professors, right? But anyways, yes, healthcare system is crazy. Dude, in Cambodia, they have just froze all COVID data for 15 years. Oh, I saw that. Canada, yes. I did. I got you. I saw that. They're just gonna seal it up. All the vaccine injuries, all the evidence of all the damage. We're just gonna seal it up for 15 years. Just to protect the companies. It's important for Canada and right. I couldn't believe it. These were all good signs, though. Like Spirit Warrior said, I think you left, but it was really good you were here. These are all signs. These are all signs of a problem they're having. The problem is Trump and the Patriots. Exposing the deep state, facing them head on. It's been long enough. We're done. And I think there's a lot of moving parts right now. People are being exposed. It's like a drip, drip, drip kind of scenario until and so just hold on, watch what happens. It's pretty exciting. Oh my gosh. Team House died from that clot shot or fuse. Well, they took it. Oh, I am so sorry, Steph Gray. I am so sorry. I know a few people. Yeah, I am so sorry. We'll be praying for you because that's just, that's literally your family. Like when this all comes out, your family was attacked by the deep state. Right? Let's just take it back at the end of the day, or the global cabal. Just if you step back, okay. They're forced to take the vaccine or to keep your job or this or that, whatever. Everybody's doing it. I went ahead and did it. Well, guess what? That was because of propaganda, and the CIA working for the deep state that wanted a certain narrative so that everybody get vaccinated for whatever reasons. There's a lot of Depop reasons, as you're mentioning, because that's what they want, right? We're a problem. And then that's all funded by people that are lobbying Congress, blah, 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 blah. And those are all controlled by the big giant corporations, right? That are lobbying Congress, that are somehow more powerful and have more say than we, the American people. And then you go all the way back and you're like, oh, that's the global cabal. They killed my family. And I've thought about that. A lot of things and I try to give everybody a chance, and I do try to even do biblical things like love my enemies, which is pretty impossible for me to do with certain people. I do want justice to be served. But yeah, dude, it's crazy. And I'm so sorry that happened to you. And yeah, I'll be praying for you. And we need justice for what has happened to us. I just told Brad this today. I said, we are in a war. And there's been casualties. It might not look the same as what we thought wars or what they were, right? Men in the battlefield, guns shooting, which still happens to this day, obviously, but there is a war for the mind. COVID, everybody jumping up, getting vaccine. That was a war for the mind. Would you do it or would you not? And a lot of people failed. And that was scary in general. So, but yeah, but thank goodness that you didn't take it. I'm so glad. And hopefully that, you have people around you also. You are a better person than I am. I don't love my enemies. They can go fuck all the way off. Yeah, no, that's the thing is there's certain things, certain people where I'm like, well, God, they're evil. They're satanic Luciferians. Like, I can't love evil. You know what I mean? Like, so, but I think in the context of these verses, maybe people that you deal with, people that are doing evil things, whatever, understand that they are corrupted, but the soul, the soul was originally God's and it is precious. And, God decides in the end, like, we don't really, and then say where these people go, because it's like, if you choose to follow God, then you're good. If you're not, I wouldn't want to be you. But yeah, it's weird. I don't know. Yeah, the love the sinner, hate the sin. I like that. I follow on that line. But there again, at the end of the day, there's some people that I the pedophile people that I don't know. I feel like Jesus. He's like, anybody harms those people, they deserve to have a freaking millstone thrown around their neck and they're thrown into the sea. And Jesus is like, I came here, I love the world. And then he's going and saying that. So I guess there's that fine line. It would be good that's a good conversation, actually, But yeah, anyways, so sidetracked, but good conversation. So without further ado, I'm going to put this up here. Okay.
Our book, River of Fire.
This is not it.
At the top of the page.
That's where I cut it. Okay, here we go. Now, this is a really great video. I'm going to have it play, and then I'm going to pop in and talk for a little bit. But honestly, this guy he just nails it. He just nails it. And so this man that you're going to hear, his name is Stephen Kinzer, and he wrote a book called Poisoner in Chief. And it's just basically everything he could find on this man, Sidney Gottlieb, that ran the CIA programs, MK Ultra. And it's, it's heavy. There's going to be some stuff that you guys going to be like, oh my gosh, that is so insane that a person could do that to the person. But it's good to know what happened and what they were capable of then to understand what they're capable of now. So play this. And I really enjoy this. I watched this whole thing, and I think you guys will really enjoy it as well.
It's an electronic gavel now? You're going big time. Oh, okay.
Inspired me
I like
to say hi.
That's why I came.
Say hi,
Okay.
Sparky.
Good evening. And welcome to the Commonwealth Club. I'm Robert Rosenthal, the former Executive Director of the Center for Investigative Reporting and a current board member there, and your moderator for tonight's program. This program is part of the club's Good Lit series underwritten by the Bernard Osher Foundation. It's now my pleasure to introduce today's distinguished speaker, Stephen Kinzer, Senior Fellow at the Watson Institute for International and Public Affairs at Brown University, former New York Times Bureau Chief for Nicaragua, Germany, and Turkey, and author of the new book, Poisoner in Chief, Sidney Gottlieb and the CIA Search for Mind Control. Mr. Kinzer is the author of 9 books, including The True Flag, The Brothers, Overthrow, and All the Shah's Men. He is also an award-winning correspondent and writes a world affairs column for the Boston Globe. His new book tells the astonishing story of the man who oversaw the CIA's secret medical experiments of the 1950s and 60s. Drawing on original interviews, survivors' testimonies, and documentary research, Mr. Kinzner's book brings to light this massive hunt for the secret of mind control that spanned several countries, included the work of Nazi scientists, and led to experimentation on government employees, willing and unwilling, foreign politicians, children, prisoners, sex workers, and anyone else the poisoner-in-chief deemed threatening or expendable. You're about to hear a startling tale of the most powerful unknown Americans of the 20th century and of government lies and deception. Please welcome Mr. Kinzner.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here back at the Commonwealth Club, especially in their wonderful new home. I've been here before speaking about other books, as you heard. This is now my 10th book. And I have to say that, so I've devoted a good deal of my career to trying to figure out what's behind the facade of public politics and public diplomacy that we see. This has led me to discover a number of things that are surprising. Maybe they were shocking to some people. But this is the first time I've been shocked. I'm still in shock at what I discovered while I was researching this book. I cannot believe that this MK Ultra project happened. And I cannot believe that this guy, Sidney Gottlieb, existed. I do believe that I stumbled on it, as you heard, the most powerful unknown American of the 20th century. Unless there was somebody else who lived in total invisibility, carried out heinous experiments on human subjects across 3 continents, and had what amounted to a license to kill issued by the U.S. government. So in a sense, my book is the biography of a guy who didn't exist. He was so anonymous that even most of the people at the CIA had no idea what he was doing. But what he was doing is something that's profoundly important as we try to understand ourselves and our modern history. So let me talk a little bit about what his job was. MK Ultra was the CIA's project aimed at finding the secret of mind control. How do you make a subject completely dependent on you so that he will tell you the complete truth, that he will forget everything you want him to forget? Maybe that you could program to carry out acts that you want him to carry out, then he would forget who ordered him to commit them, or that he ever had committed them. So this bizarre project based on a great fantasy began in the early years of the Cold War, after World War II. The CIA was electrified by a couple of episodes that it misinterpreted as meaning that the Soviets, the communists, had discovered the key to mind control. One of them was the trial of the Roman Catholic prelate in Hungary. Communist authorities put him on trial. He confessed to crimes that he obviously had not committed, and he seemed dazed. He spoke in a monotone. His eyes were glazed. As it later turned out, he had been coerced by the normal means that people have been using to coerce prisoners for centuries. But the CIA didn't see it that way. They saw that he'd been brainwashed, which incidentally was a word that was invented by a CIA propagandist to try to promote the idea in the United States that people who were dissidents and didn't accept the paradigm of that era had somehow been captured by foreigners. But the CIA then fell for its own fantasy and started believing in brainwashing. The second episode came at the end of the Korean War, when it turned out that a number of the released American prisoners had signed statements criticizing aspects of life in the United States, or even confessing to having committed war crimes in Korea. How could this have happened? It couldn't be that they were speaking honestly, and the CIA's answer was brainwashing. So again, the communists, they made themselves believe, have come up with the way to control people's minds. That means we, the CIA, have to launch a project to do the same. We have to catch up with them. So as it later turned out, this was all a fantasy. Actually, there was no pill or potion or any technique that Soviets or any other authorities had discovered to control people's minds. But the CIA was open to this. And I asked myself, how did they get caught up in this fantasy? I think those particular episodes were important, but I suspect that their minds were made ready for this by all the movies and all the books and stories that they read. There were all those Sherlock Holmes stories and Edgar Allan Poe stories, movies like Gaslight, and movies about Svengali, who could make people do whatever he wanted. And I think maybe at the CIA, unconsciously, people assumed that whatever fantasists could imagine, science could make real. So in 1951, Allen Dulles decided to formalize the CIA's search for the key to mind control. And he decided to go outside the CIA to find somebody who could direct this project. He called it MK Ultra. And I think that name reflects what Allen Dulles thought about this project. It was the Ultra Project. If you could find a way to control people's minds, the prize would be nothing less than global mastery. Little successes of the CIA in the early 1950s, like overthrowing the government of Iran or overthrowing the government of Guatemala, would pale into insignificance if you could find the ultra secret, the way to control people's minds. So the person that Allen Dulles found to run this mind control program was very different from everybody else in the early CIA. Most of the officers in those days were silver spoon aristocratic products of the same prep schools and investment banks who had known each other through family ties. Gottlieb was not like that. He was the son of Jewish immigrants. He grew up in the Bronx. He went to City College of New York and later Caltech. He limped. He had a stutter. He was 32 years old. And with all this, he was brought in to be the chief chemist of the CIA. He was also different from other CIA officers of that era, and probably from every other federal employee in Washington during that period, because of his personal life. He considered himself a deeply compassionate humanist. He lived in an eco cabin in the woods with no running water. He grew his own vegetables. He meditated with candles. He studied Buddhism. He wrote poetry. He got up before dawn to milk his goats. So a very unusual figure at the CIA. With a scientist's mind, Gottlieb and the small group of chemists with whom he worked started out on this project, which was the most intense and systematic search for mind control techniques that has ever been undertaken in history. So the first thing he decided was that before you could figure out how to implant a new mind in somebody's brain, you first had to find a way to blast away the mind that was in there. You had to destroy a human mind and a human body and a human spirit. That was what he set out to do. Next thing he asked himself, also with a good scientist's approach, was what information, what research is out there already that we could draw on? So immediately they turned to the people who had had the greatest recent experience in experiments aimed at destroying human minds and bodies, and that was the doctors at the Nazi concentration camps and their counterparts in Japan. These people were brought into the CIA. They not only advised the CIA on kinds of experiments and techniques they might use, but actually participated. So several of these Nazi doctors and their Japanese counterparts were hired by the CIA to bring the knowledge that they had gained during the war when they experimented people to death and use this to inform the CIA's search for mind control. So Gottlieb then set out on a series of what he called sub-projects aimed at testing every kind of drug and every kind of other coercive technique that he could imagine to see how he could first destroy a mind and then try to insert another mind in the void. These were the most extreme experiments that have ever been conducted on human subjects by any officer or agency of the U.S. government. He had two sets of experiments. One set that was in the United States, and he also conducted experiments outside the United States. So within the U.S., his favored subjects were prisoners, for obvious reasons. He, for example, oversaw an experiment at the federal prison in Kentucky in which 7 African-American inmates were isolated into a cell and, without being told what was happening to them, were given overdoses of LSD, triple doses, every day for 77 days. This was part of Gottlieb's effort to find out if this technique could destroy a human mind. And guess what? Yes, it can. Gottlieb found many ways to destroy human minds using sensory deprivation, electroshock, all sorts of different combinations of drugs. Outside the United States, his experiments were even more intense because there he didn't have what they charmingly called the disposal problem. If somebody died under their experiments, the body could easily be disposed of, particularly in Germany, which we more or less controlled after the Second World War, and in Japan and South Korea and in the Philippines. During the course of my research for this book, I discovered what I think may be the first CIA secret prison. It's in a lovely chalet outside of Frankfurt in Germany. It looks like it could be a B&B. And the young German businessman who now owns it took me down into the basement. And he showed me his storage rooms, and he said these were the cells where CIA doctors and their Nazi counterparts conducted experiments that were just continuations of the experiments that had gone on in concentration camps. He also said to me, the older people in the neighborhood here all understand what happened in this house. It's not a secret. And in fact, I found an article in Der Spiegel, the German magazine, about this house, and said this was the CIA torture house. There were deaths, but the number is not known. We now know that Gottlieb was at the top of this whole series of experiments. One of the things they did in that house, for example, involved sedating people, putting them in a coma, and then overdosing them with stimulants so that and then in the period when they were in the transition phase from comatose to hyperactive, still in their sensory deprivation chambers, they would be dosed with heavy electroshocks to see if this combination might somehow be the way to open up their minds to manipulation from the outside. So Gottlieb conceived, directed, and in many cases personally observed these experiments. He had the Jekyll and Hyde thing going in a really big way. So he would do that during the day and then go home to do his meditations and his community service and be the loving father and husband that he was. Among all the drugs that Gottlieb came across and inspected and compounded, and that was a vast array, the one that fascinated him the most was LSD. He emerged at the CIA at the very beginning of the LSD era, and he thought that it could be the key for mind control. It was so powerful in such small doses. He thought this somehow could be used as the key to blow away a person's mind and then program a person's mind. So in 1953, Gottlieb persuaded the CIA to buy the entire world supply of LSD. And he brought that back to the United States from the company in Switzerland that manufactured it. And there he divided his LSD into two groups. Part of it was used for these heinous experiments that I just discussed. Other parts of that LSD were used for non-coercive experiments with volunteers. So he set up a couple of bogus medical foundations, and through these foundations he offered hospitals and clinics and universities the chance to carry out experiments with people who would come in and be told what they were doing so that their reactions could be observed. Many of those experiments happened here in California. And who were the first people to volunteer? Well, one was Ken Kesey, who went on to write One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Another was Allen Ginsberg, the poet. Another was Robert Hunter, the lyricist for the Grateful Dead. All of these people got their first LSD from Sidney Gottlieb, from the CIA, from MK Ultra. They didn't know it at the time. But 20, 25 years later, they all came to realize that they had actually unwittingly been part of a big CIA project. John Lennon was asked in an interview I found about LSD, and he said, "We must always remember to thank the CIA." He didn't know enough to say what he really should have said, which was, "We must always remember to thank Sidney Gottlieb." So in a way, Gottlieb was an unwitting godfather of the entire counterculture. And the irony, of course, is that the drug that he hoped would allow the CIA to control people's minds actually wound up fueling a generational rebellion aimed at destroying everything the CIA believed in. So at the end of 10 years of these intense experiments in the early 60s, Gottlieb was forced to come to two conclusions. Number one, yes, it is possible to destroy a human mind. He found out how to do that, and he left a trail of destroyed lives behind him. Number two, no, it is not possible to insert another mind into somebody's brain. Mind control is actually a myth. You can't make people go out and commit murder if they're fundamentally opposed to murder, despite what all those movies showed you. So all that suffering was aimed at reaching a holy grail, which ultimately Gottlieb had to admit did not exist. Gottlieb then went on to another stage in his career. He knew more about poisons than anybody in America, probably more than anyone in the world. So in the spring of 1960, when President Eisenhower ordered that Fidel Castro be sawed off, as he put it, Gottlieb got the job. It was Gottlieb who made the poison cigars that were supposed to be passed to Fidel Castro. He poisoned 50 of them, a whole box with botulinum, one of his favorite poisons. When those could not be delivered, he compounded a series of L pills. I've learned a whole new lexicon of poisons since I've been working on this book. L stands for lethal. So L pills are pills that kill, and Gottlieb could make those quite easily with his unique laboratory. Those pills also could not be delivered to Castro. Gottlieb even made a wetsuit that was supposed to be given to Castro as a gift, and inside it was tainted with a fungus that would eat away Castro's skin and kill him after he put it on. Later that same summer in 1960, Gottlieb personally traveled to the Congo, carrying poison that he had made to deliver to the CIA station chief in the Congo for use in killing the prime minister of the Congo, Patrice Lumumba, who Eisenhower had also ordered assassinated. Lumumba was shot by Belgian and Congolese commandos before the poison could be used, but Gottlieb definitely secured his reputation as the poisoner in chief. Gottlieb later went on to spend 7 years as head of the technical services staff, which is the part of the CIA that makes the toys and the gizmos and the tools that spies use. In 1973, when he and his patron Richard Helms were effectively forced out of the CIA, they decided to destroy all records of MK Ultra as they left, thereby protecting themselves and the agency from embarrassment and much more. Since then, it's been possible to piece together some of what MK Ultra was, but maybe my favorite sentence in the book is at the very end where I say, everything in this book is true, but not everything that's true is in this book. I'm painfully aware that I've only discovered a little piece of what MK Ultra was and who Sidney Gottlieb was. Towards the end of his life, Gottlieb was very weighed down by what he had done. I have a section in my book where people who knew him in his final years talked about how he obviously felt burdened. I talked to Seymour Hersh, who went out to visit him during that period, and he said he was a broken man. He was riddled with guilt. If he'd been a Catholic, he would have gone to a monastery. So in the end, I look back on Gottlieb as a highly contradictory figure. He's all sorts of different archetypes that contradict each other. He was a creator who was also a destroyer. He was a gentle-hearted torturer. He was an outlaw, but an outlaw who served power. So his story is a disturbing way in the end of understanding our country and perhaps even understanding ourselves. Thank you.
Our thanks to Stephen Kinzer, Senior Fellow at the Watson Institute for International and Public Affairs at Brown University, former New York Times Bureau Chief for Nicaragua, Germany, and Turkey, and author of the new book, Poisoner-in-Chief, Sidney Gottlieb and the CIA Search for Mind Control. So now we'll start with the Q&A. You said in your remarks that you were actually, I think, surprised at a lot of the things you found during your research, but how did you first learn or even hear about Sidney Gottlieb, and what intrigued you to start the pursuit?
In an earlier book, I had included a short section about how the CIA had sent somebody to the Congo with poison to kill Prime Minister Lumumba. Later on, I began thinking about that. That story stuck with me, and I began to wonder, so who was that guy? Was that a courier? No, it was not a courier. It was the chief chemist of the CIA. Then I found out that this same guy had made the poisons to kill Fidel Castro. He'd made poison to kill Zhou Enlai, the prime minister of China. But slowly I began to realize that the job of making poisons to kill foreign leaders was just a sidelight for Gottlieb. He was just the pharmacist in that project. People investigating the CIA got very excited about that. But the MK Ultra project was much bigger than that. That was all Gottlieb's responsibility. It would never have been that extreme, that intense, had it not been for Gottlieb. So I began to realize that this person had a secret life that helps us understand a little bit of what is the secret life of the U.S. government.
Well, part of that, and when you talked about the assassinations, or attempted assassinations of Lumumba and Castro and others, was sort of, he was, in a sense, a tool of the people who ran the CIA. And tell us about, in the book, you recreated the scene where Eisenhower, who people don't think about it, was looking at what was happening in the Congo and decided that Lumumba should be eliminated.
So Eisenhower, I think, saw covert action, even including assassination of foreign leaders, as a peace project. Think of it, he had had to send kids out to die by the thousands in World War II. This must have weighed on him. So I think he believed that covert action was a great way to overthrow governments and change the course of history without having to waste all kinds of lives. I don't think he looked forward to see what the long-term impact of this would be. But Eisenhower also symbolizes how unsupervised Sidney Gottlieb was. So undoubtedly, Eisenhower knew something from Secretary of State Dulles, whose brother Allen Dulles was supervising Gottlieb. But the only people at the CIA who I think had an idea of what Gottlieb was doing were Allen Dulles, the director, and Richard Helms, who was the person in between him and Gottlieb. So both of those people understood that Gottlieb was doing horrific things. His experiments were very bloody, and probably people were being killed. Now, those of us in other kinds of work might think if somebody was doing something like that and was working for us, we would want to get some details and find out exactly what was happening. Their response was the opposite. The more they understood of how awful these experiments were, the less they wanted to know about them. They never asked. In fact, they didn't want to know. I think this is obedience not only to CIA culture, but the culture of secret services in general. Ignorance is an asset. people don't want to know too much. And because of that, Gottlieb was able to act completely on his own. It has the extra added asset that later on, when things become public, as they did, at least to a certain point, people in the CIA and even above the CIA are able to say, oh, it was one crazy guy. Unfortunately, we didn't supervise him well enough, and he went off and did these crazy things. This is a way of escaping all institutional responsibility for the CIA and for the U.S. government.
Well, tying into that theme, I'm going to back up a little bit. And in the book, you go into great detail, gruesome detail, really about sort of the aftermath of World War II and OSS evolving into the CIA and what the sort of the context of what was happening in the world, the fear of communism. But you mentioned that in your remarks that the U.S. brought in Nazis and Japanese doctors and generals and leaders who had been involved in horrific things. But can you talk a little bit about the way Kurt Bloom and Shiro Ishii were brought in and what they actually were doing, and yet the lack of, I call it morality, in terms of or ethics, that led them to become part of this process of creating new super weapons and learning what they had done. But if you can detail a little bit what they actually were doing.
So Shiro Ishii was a Japanese doctor and general who ran a vivisection shop in Manchuria for the Japanese army, in which several thousand people were essentially cut open alive and murdered so that he could see how bodies reacted in extreme stress. And then he would take slides, take little bio samples from their organs that he had ripped out of them while they were still alive. The CIA wanted those slides. And they went to Ishii after the war and promised him, we won't prosecute you, but we want to know where your slides are. We want to have all the information about how the body reacts to the most extreme kinds of torture. Kurt Bloom was something like his counterpart in Germany. He was the chief of the Nazi bio-warfare program. Bloom was put on trial in Nuremberg at the famous doctor's trial. But the CIA was able to get to the judges in that trial, who were American military officers, and essentially send them the message, we don't want to hang Kurt Bloom, we want to hire him. And they did. Kurt Bloom ultimately came to work for the CIA and brought all of his knowledge with him. I think this reflects the tenor of the time, but it also has a message for today. Commitment to a great cause is the ultimate justification for committing immoral acts. Patriotism is among the most transcendent and seductive of causes. When you allow yourself to get caught up into that, I think you lose sight of the question, is there a limit to the amount of evil that you can do pursuing what you think is a good cause before the evil begins to outweigh the good? I think Gottlieb did lose sight of that equation.
And then you can go further, and you may want to just, I'll ask about Operation Paperclip, but one of the things that struck me in the book was the use of your word, that was the use of the word the CIA used, the expendables. And you referenced that. But it's difficult to tell, reading the book, how many human beings were expendable overseas, but also in this country. And is there any estimate, and can you explain what an expendable was? And also, you mentioned the Villa Schuster and what was happening with the Rough Boys. But can you talk a little bit about that, and if there's any information really about what happened in those places?
So we don't know the number of people that were experimented to death. Probably that was included in those 7 cases of documents that were destroyed as Gottlieb was leaving the CIA. Operation Paperclip was the operation by which the biographies of Nazis were bleached. They were converted into making it seem like they were very nice folks. Every time it said member of the SS, it would be changed to not a member of the SS. References to their nice family lives would be included. So they could be brought to the U.S. or brought to work for the CIA. During this period, only a very small number of scientists were aware of what Gottlieb was doing. They were the members of his inner core, and they traveled to these sites in East Asia and in Europe, actually not only to conceive of, but to oversee and observe these torturous experiments. So Gottlieb himself used LSD by his own account more than 200 times. I had to wonder when I began to understand the intensity of some of these experiments, whether he might have conceived some of them while he was actually tripping on acid. It's really the only way I can imagine that you would come up with these combinations of torments and then be able to convince yourself that this is something you need to do in order to defend the United States against communism.
Well, one of the things that I think I saw when I was reading the book, when you talk about what happened in Villa Schuster and with the Expendables in Germany and the dark sites really set up, was a direct lineage to what happened after 9/11. And that's through line through the CIA. Can you talk about how that sort of worked and also what was utilized from learnings from the 40, 50 years prior to what happened in 2000 with Abu Ghraib and places like that?
So the subjects in Gottlieb's experiments outside the United States, in foreign countries, were what they called expendables, another charming CIA phrase. Those were people who either were suspected enemy agents, possibly refugees who didn't have any connection to anybody and wouldn't be missed if they never turned up again. In East Asia, many of the expendables were captured North Korean prisoners of war. And a number of these people, we don't know how many, did not survive the experiments. Gottlieb came to know more than anybody of his generation about how to destroy a human being. And he wrote a memo explaining how to do this. How do you cut a person off from all sensory stimulus? How do you make a person completely dependent on the interrogator? How do you make that person lose all sense of connection to anything outside the little chamber in which you've imprisoned him? Gottlieb wrote about the techniques of doing this in an extended memo. So as I discuss in my book, that memo wound up shaping guidelines that were used for officers working in the Phoenix program in Vietnam. They were used in manuals that were passed to secret police forces working in Latin America during the 1980s. And they then turned up in instruction manuals for people overseeing interrogations in places like Abu Ghraib and Guantanamo. In some cases, the phrases can be traced right back to Gottlieb. So there's a definite continuum from the experiments that he conducted in the 1950s right through to the tactics of so-called enhanced interrogation that we're using today.
Well, one of the things that struck me reading the book were the titles given some of these manuals. The Counterintelligence Interrogation, which was the Kubark Manual, which evolved in 1983, I think you wrote, to something called the Human Resources Exploitation Training Manual, which is really about what?
Human resources exploitation is another word, I think, for mind control. How do you get into a person's head and manage to control that person? So although he was never able to figure out how to program someone to go out and commit aggressive acts, he was able to find out a whole series of ways that you could reduce a functioning human being into a quasi-vegetable state. Only decades later did some of his victims slowly come to realize that that must be what had happened to them. Somebody in a bar, the one with the club foot that put something in a drink and then my life was never the same again. Or I went into a hospital complaining of depression. I was captured by one of these doctors and then put into sensory deprivation chambers, and by the time I came out, I could never recognize my family again for the rest of my life or eat with silverware. What happened? Decades later, some of these people slowly began to connect what had happened to them to Gottlieb. And toward the end of his life, one of these lawsuits was actually going to come to trial after 20 years of ins and outs of the American court system. At the beginning of 1999, it looked like Gottlieb was actually going to have to testify under oath as a defendant in a case in which he had participated, apparently, in the drugging of someone whose life was completely destroyed from that moment.
And just as the case was about to go to trial in 1999, Gottlieb died at the age of 80. I worked with the lawyer who had pursued that case for 20 years, and he told me, we'll never know for sure, but I'm convinced Gottlieb committed suicide. He didn't want to be the instrument by which all of this became public, and it's not a coincidence that he died just as a case was about to come to trial.
One of the things that's striking in the book is almost the willy-nilly nature of dropping drops of LSD and other drugs into people's drinks or at parties. In fact, one anecdote is, I think in, was it 50, one of the Christmas parties. What happened in one of the CIA Christmas parties?
So in December of 1954, I found a memo from Sheffield Edwards, who was the chief of security for the CIA, and it says, they had all news about Gottlieb and his LSD fascination had already begun to filter around the CIA. And he said, given this information, it would not be recommended to test the punch at the holiday Christmas parties here at the CIA. I found another great story that Gottlieb used to like to tell later on. So his experiments with LSD were super secret. Nobody even knew what LSD was in those days. And nobody was allowed to know. So at this point in the mid-50s, one day Gottlieb was in an airplane, and he had gone to the galley to get a drink and was walking back to his seat with his drink. And as he was walking down the aisle, he heard someone say, "Is that LSD you're drinking?" And he was momentarily horrified, since this was one of the greatest secrets of the U.S. government. And he turned around, and who was sitting there but Allen Dulles? Just about the only person who knew.
The book is just full of the most incredible characters you either stumbled across or knew about before you started. Some of them are right out of the worst horror stories you can imagine. The Canadian doctor, let me find his name, McEwen, was it?
Cameron.
Can you talk about how he got hooked up with Gottlieb and the experiments he ran, which to me were some of the most horrific that you wrote about? And I think he was also, wasn't he the head of the American Psychiatric Association and the Canadian? These are esteemed psychiatrists who were brought into this web.
Ewan Cameron was one of the contractors who got one of the 149 subcontracts that Gottlieb gave out. He was a Canadian psychologist, and as you said, very eminent, president of psychological societies, director of an institute at McGill University. Coincidentally enough, just before I walked into this room, within the last hour, I've had a little meeting with somebody whose father had his life completely destroyed by going in to see Ewan Cameron. So he told me my father had 2 panic attacks. So he went into the psychological hospital. And at this time, by bad luck, Ewan Cameron had been contracted by Gottlieb to grab people for experiments. And this guy was taken in for 6 weeks of sensory deprivation and massive dosing of drugs. One of Cameron's techniques also was to give his victims headphones in their sensory deprivation coffins. And in these headphones, he would have them, they would be repeated, some phrase, hundreds of thousands of times over days and weeks. A little phrase like, "My mother hates me, my mother hates me." This would be going on, shrieking into your ears all this time. So as I just heard from this gentleman with whom I met, the father, then in his mid-40s, came out and was never able to function again as a normal human being. He essentially was psychologically crippled and destroyed for life. That was the trail that Sidney Gottlieb left behind him. And Cameron was one of the most extreme of his subcontractors, but only the most extreme among the ones we know about. So some people later have turned up, including victims of Ewan Cameron, and have sought redress. Interestingly enough, one of his victims was the wife of a member of the Canadian Parliament. He kept her case alive, and the granddaughter of this victim of Ewan Cameron is now a very interesting artist in Canada. She's produced a whole series of artworks aimed at trying to convey what her grandmother went through under Ewan Cameron and Gottlieb's care, if you want to call it that. And I have a photo
of one of her artworks in my book. It's the last picture in the photo section, and it's supposed to signify that some of the effects of his work are still being felt today, and that some people are still trying to point the responsibility and the finger at where it belongs.
Well, again, the strand of characters in here is sort of astonishing, but one thing that really is clear is that anything Gottlieb and others in the CIA thought of to try and experiment and answer some of these questions, they basically got away with.
You're absolutely right. There was no limit. Gottlieb had the right to requisition human subjects at will all over Europe and Asia, as many as he needed. As I said, he was hardly supervised at all. Now, I mentioned that he only had a very small core of scientists working for him, which was vital because the secrets that they knew were the deepest and darkest of the entire Cold War. There was a moment in 1953 where one of these guys suddenly had an attack of conscience. This was a guy named Frank Olson, who was one of Gottlieb's chief chemists. During the summer of 1953, Olson made one of the normal tours that the MK Ultra team would make to Europe to observe the experiments. During this tour, Olson apparently saw people being tortured and possibly tortured to death using aerosols that he himself, Olson, had developed. Suddenly, this struck him, and he didn't want to do it anymore. He told people he was now very uncomfortable. When he got back to the U.S., he told his colleagues in the CIA, I want to quit. I'm going to quit the CIA. We later found out that he even asked one of his friends if he knew a good journalist. So not so long after coming back from his trip to Europe, and on a November night in 1953, Frank Olson went out the window of a 13th floor hotel room in New York City and plunged to his death. That was described as the suicide of an Army scientist. He was not an Army scientist. He was a CIA scientist. And the verdict of suicide also seems quite suspect from the perspective that we have today.
Well, that was a through line in the book, that story. What is Ultra? What is it? Does it have a meaning?
So the Mind Control Project had three names. It started out being called Bluebird, supposedly because truth serum being one of the first goals. The idea was you were going to try to find a potion or a pill that would make a prisoner sing like a bird. Later on, the name of the project was changed from Bluebird to Artichoke, supposedly Alan Dulles' favorite vegetable. Was not able to verify that. And then it became MK Ultra. I think Alan Dulles chose that name because it meant the Ultra Project. This is the most important project we have. And I think he was right. It is a fantasy, but if that fantasy were true, then it would be the ultra discovery for any intelligence service.
You know, one thing, again, you mentioned morality, but frame the world at that time and what could have enabled, really, people in the American government to do the things they did, their worldview of what they saw happening. It's the aftermath of World War II. We think we won, but then the rise of communism, Russia, USSR, China. Is there an explanation for this or even an excuse?
America always has trouble when we get into enemy deprivation syndrome. We need to have somebody out there to pose as the counterweight and the enemy that's out there. And certainly the Soviet Union played that role very positively for us in the late 40s and early 50s and beyond. I think we projected onto the Soviets all the worst aspects of the enemies that we'd fought in World War II. If the Japanese could bomb America without warning, the Soviets were certainly likely to do the same. If the Nazis had killed millions of people for no reason in concentration camps, the Soviets would certainly want to do the same to us. So Americans were led to believe that we faced a horrific and implacable enemy that was plotting every day, not only to kill us all, but to destroy the entire possibility of meaningful human life on Earth. Fighting such a horrific enemy would certainly be worth the sacrifice of a few lives or a few hundred lives. To complain about that in the climate of the early CIA would have seemed naive and sentimental. So caught up in this mindset, everything seemed justifiable. And I do think that that's one message that that era has for our era today. Now we're also being told that because of the urgency of the threat that we're facing, we have to give up some of our civil liberties and we have to carry out certain actions in the world that, being good and ethical and moral, responsible people that we are, we normally would never carry out. But in this extreme circumstance, we're forced to abandon some of our principles. So I think there's always the push to say that the situation we happen to be in right now is so extreme that we have to depart from normality. After a while, we adjust to a new normality.
Well, I mean, one of the things you cite over and over is that Gottlieb and others saw themselves as true patriots and were really defending American values. He couldn't fight in the war. I think Dulles also had a clubfoot. I mean, and there was a connection there. I mean, was that part of the motivation?
Definitely, Gottlieb was motivated especially by the fact that he had not been able to serve in World War II because his limp made him ineligible. He was eager to serve the U.S. government in some other way. When the CIA called, he thought this was his chance. And there's no evidence that he ever questioned any of the extreme natures of his experiments. On the contrary, he kept pushing it further and further. I had to ask myself, how could a person who considered himself such a decent humanistic being allow himself to do that? Maybe it was that he considered himself an extreme individualist who lived in a very unusual way. He could have told himself that there was a force in the world that wanted to make it impossible for anybody to live in an individual way and wanted to regiment all of society. This is part of what we were told about what communism was. And therefore, anything that he could do to resist that would be justified. But his story is definitely an object lesson for all of us who get carried away with a cause and think that anything is justifiable given the urgency of the threat. Needless to say, Cold War historians today have unanimously concluded that the way we perceived the world, the threat that we saw, was greatly exaggerated. But at the time, it seemed so real that any kind of defense, and Gottlieb certainly saw his experiments as a way to defend America, was justifiable.
Well, in seeking solutions, again, the creativity and sort of the, I'll say, horrific nature of what was going on enlisted many people. Tell us about John Mulholland.
I came across such fascinating characters writing this book. So John Mulholland was the most famous magician of his era. And Gottlieb essentially was brought into the CIA to do something magic, mind control. So it was logical in a way that he would cross paths with Mulholland, who was a disciple of Houdini and then became this great figure who performed at Radio City Music Hall, and he performed for Eleanor Roosevelt and the Sultan of Sulu, and he had a great coterie of celebrity friends. So Gottlieb went to see him and presented him with this problem. He said, I'm able to make poisons and mind-altering pills and devices. We also have agents who can get close to the targets. But how do we actually deliver the pill? How do you get the pill into the drink? How do you stick the needle he had invented needles that were so hyper thin you wouldn't even feel them when they went in. But how do you get to them? How do you actually deliver the poisons? And he hired Mulholland to write a manual based on his stage magic techniques about how to drop pills into people's drinks without them noticing, how women could use brocade purses as disguises. And I learned a little bit about magic from reading his manual, which did become public not so long ago. It's actually the only MK Ultra document that has become fully available. And one of the things that I learned about magic from John Mulholland, this was what he taught the CIA agents, because he not only wrote the book, he conducted seminars, training sessions for CIA agents in how to drop the poisons and how to stab people with poison syringes, was that it's not true that the hand is quicker than the eye. He used to say this. You've all heard the phrase, the hand is quicker than the eye. That's how magic works. This is not correct.
The hand is not quicker than the eye. That's not how magic works. Magic works by distracting a person and making them look at one thing while you're doing something else. And so I learned this from Mulholland, and CIA officers learned that and a lot more.
So we're in San Francisco, so we have to talk a little bit about Operation Sea Spray and Operation Midnight Climax and what they were all about and some of the characters behind those operations, when people may be surprised to hear the address of Operation Midnight Climax.
Well, yeah, these are two drug-related tests that were carried out in San Francisco, very different. So Operation Sea Spray was actually a military operation that the CIA was also involved in. The military wanted to find out if it would be possible to spray an entire city with some kind of toxic poison. In order to test this, they picked a city, and they decided they would spray that city with a non-toxic but traceable bacteria so they could see if it worked. And they chose San Francisco. This became Operation Sea Spray. San Francisco was chosen not just because it's on the water and has tall buildings, but also it was thought that the fog would help disguise the clouds of air. So for about a week, a specially fitted Navy minesweeper that had giant hoses built into it, connected to tanks of a harmless but traceable bacteria, cruised along the coast of California near San Francisco. And sure enough, a week later, after all the measurements were taken, it turned out that this poison spray, or could have been poison if they wanted to, had reached all of San Francisco and about a dozen communities surrounding it. So the CIA found out, thanks to San Francisco, that it was able
Weren't there
to
some
poison a
people
whole
who
city.
actually had it in their system and it affected them?
I found a medical journal article written by a couple of doctors in a hospital just outside San Francisco, and he and his colleagues said we had 11 patients check in with urinary infections. We couldn't understand where these came from. The spray had a little red dye in it so they could trace it. And they said there was a little bit of red dye in the urine, and we have no explanation for this puzzling bacteriological phenomenon. So it wasn't as non-toxic as they thought. Needless to say, no officials in San Francisco or California were ever told that this operation
And what year was
happening.
that?
So that was in 1951.
Okay.
So later on, in the mid-1950s, even a more bizarre project unfolded up on Telegraph Hill. Sidney Gottlieb, in his infinite imagination, decided that one thing he should find out about is whether drugs had a special effect on men in conjunction with sex. So how do you do that? Oh, no problem. The CIA should set up a bordello and should hire somebody to run it. And sure enough, that's what Gottlieb did. He hired a guy who was actually in his day job a federal narcotics agent. He's one of the most colorful characters in my book. And this guy's job was to hire a string of prostitutes who brought men up to an apartment at 225 Chestnut Street up on Telegraph Avenue, which Gottlieb had decorated in a kind of a bordello chic style. And there, the women would dose these men with tainted drinks. Of course, they didn't even know what was in the drinks. And meanwhile, this agent, George Hunter White, who knew nothing about psychology or any kind of science, would sit behind a one-way mirror on his portable toilet drinking martinis out of a pitcher and making notes about the sex that was going on in the other room. This was your tax dollars at work seeking to find a way to protect the United States against communism.
Well, one of the things in the book you write about is that some of them were dosed with LSD and other things, that after finishing, normally the prostitutes jumped out and left, but they realized that if they hung around with the men would then begin talking.
Gottlieb had his agents prep the prostitutes after a while to see if you stay with them for a while. Ask them questions like, you know that plane you're working on? So how high does it fly? They would test out these things in Operation Midnight Climax. And I went up actually to see the building. It's a lovely spot. I did read that it had a view of the bay. The building has been unfortunately demolished. There's a new building there. But I still felt a little of that Midnight Climax karma.
So you've delved deep into the secrets of the CIA. A lot of the files, as you said, nearly all the files for Ultra were destroyed. I think one of the interesting ways some of the information came out was from receipts and expense reports. But looking at the arc of the CIA's history growing out of World War II, what do you think is going on today, whether it was under this administration or from Bush through Obama to Trump now?
Well, when you are researching a project like this one, MK Ultra, and you're realizing how extreme are some of the projects that unfold behind closed doors, it has to make you wonder if there aren't others. Could there have been another Gottlieb? Could there be other Gottliebs now? Think of how technology has advanced so tremendously from the essentially Paleolithic era of the 1950s when Gottlieb was around. At least when Gottlieb was there, there were people who could have supervised him if they wanted to. They didn't want to. But it was a small circle. It was a small system. Now, our surveillance system and surveillance state is so big that I don't think there's any person or even any group of people that has an idea of everything that it's doing. So certainly the Gottlieb story takes you to the edge of conspiracy theory and beyond. It's difficult not to read this story and wonder if there isn't somebody, some person comparable to Gottlieb who will be the subject of a book by some Stephen Kinzer 50 years from now that might be discussed in this very room.
One of the things that, was sort of remarkable again were the devices that were created by. Could you briefly mention a few of those?
So Gottlieb became, as I said, the maker of spy tools towards the end of his career. He was very creative, as he always was. And he was, if you've seen the James Bond movies, you know those books, there was a guy named Q who created all the spy tools. That was Gottlieb. He created tools that boggle the imagination. One that I didn't want to look too deeply into was a miniaturized prison escape kit that could be concealed in a rectal suppository. He received a request. He often responded to the requests of CIA officers in the field. It turned out that CIA officers in a Latin American country, which I think was Colombia, were no longer able to overhear the Soviet ambassador because he was suspicious and he had begun carrying out his sensitive conversations out in the yard under a big tree. What can we do? So Gottlieb came up with a gun, with a one-shot projectile, a specially made gun. You'd fire this projectile from several hundred yards away through the gate of the embassy, and the projectile would hit the tree. And in that projectile was a miniaturized microphone and a transmitter. Another one of my favorite devices that I actually did see had to do with the L pill, the lethal pill. So Gottlieb concocted these for all sorts of purposes, including for the U-2 pilots who were given that famous device with a pin where they could just touch their skin and they would die. That was a toxin that Gottlieb had created by extracting minute amounts of bacteria from thousands of Alaskan butter clams. That's the way he made his poisons. He went on to create an L pill that was going to be given to apparently a Soviet agent, so somebody that the CIA had who was a Russian, who was a traitor to his own country working inside the Soviet bureaucracy. And this person was afraid of being found out and tortured to death, and he wouldn't work unless he got an L pill. So Gottlieb could make the L pill, but that's not enough. How do you take the L pill when you're in the middle of an interrogation? You can't ask for a pause and reach down into your sock and take out the pill box. So Gottlieb created a pair of eyeglasses with this guy's prescription. And if you took off the glasses, for example, under an intense interrogation session where you were very nervous and you were sweating and you nervously started to chew on the end of your eyeglasses, that's where the pill was. So you'd chew on your eyeglasses and immediately fall over and die. So this is the kind of creativity that made Gottlieb such a celebrated figure toward the end of his career at the CIA.
So in your research, you know, obviously the goal of a lot of this work of the CIA was control and creating the super weapon, LSD, you know, without all these things, a super weapon. But was there also experimentation looking at LSD and psilocybin, the mushrooms, other things that other drugs they were using in terms of treatment, actual treatment for illness, mental illness? You know, today some of these drugs are being used or experiments are going on and legal now, once again, to treat trauma, for example, in veterans. Was there any indication that they actually looked maybe how this could be used, quote unquote, for good or to help people?
First of all, I would say that Gottlieb would answer, everything we did with LSD was for the good because it was to defend America. But in the narrower sense of your question, the answer is no. Gottlieb never thought of LSD in a therapeutic sense. Now, the chemist who discovered LSD, Albert Hofmann, did think of it that way. His first idea was that it should be used as a treatment for mental illness. So now we're 70 years later, and I think you're right that in a way LSD is back. There's going to be a musical on Broadway this spring, written by James Lapine, the Pulitzer and Tony Award winner, about how Aldous Huxley and Claire Booth Luce and Cary Grant used LSD way back in the day. Just recently, Johns Hopkins University announced a $17 million grant to create an institute for the study of psychoactive drugs. It's the first time this ever happened in America. Denver has legalized magic mushrooms. I think that we're now finally perhaps getting back to the point that Albert Hofmann envisioned at the beginning in the 1940s, where LSD and psychoactive drugs could be used for therapeutic and positive purposes. One of the reasons why we got so far off this track was Sidney Gottlieb.
So unfortunately, we've reached the point where we have time for one last question. And I want to read, you alluded to this earlier in your introductory remarks, but I came away from reading the book seeing that where you certainly saw the evil in Gottlieb, but he was a very complicated character, as you alluded to, because he was a reflection of his times. Was he a patriot? Was he a killer? But you wrote near the end of the book, history and morality loom like threatening clouds over any attempt to assess Sidney Gottlieb's life and work. He can be fairly praised as a patriot and just as fairly abhorred as demonic. Judging him requires a deep dive into the human mind and the human soul. So what's your conclusion after doing all this work and writing this book?
After he left the CIA, Gottlieb went off to become the Sidney Gottlieb that he always thought that he was. They sold all their belongings. They went off to help the world's poorest people for the rest of their lives. And in 1975, Sidney Gottlieb and his wife were working at a hospital for leprosy patients in India when they got a most unwelcome cable from the General Counsel of the CIA saying essentially, I've got bad news, somebody has figured out that you exist. And they want to talk to you. That was the Church Committee that was investigating the CIA. Gottlieb did have to testify twice, but he did it in private rooms. And the senators did not know enough to ask him the right questions. They focused mainly on the assassinations, which were headline grabbing. They never touched the heart of his MK Ultra mystery. So I think that Gottlieb definitely believed he was a patriot, but I also think he understood the severity of what he was doing. Pieces of his testimony are available, and in one point he says, I want the members of this committee to know that I considered this work to be very difficult, very distasteful, very unpleasant, but also very necessary, which you could only understand if you were there at that time. So I think that is the way he justified it. Nonetheless, his own justifications were not enough even for himself at the end. Anybody who believed in final judgment or karmic payback would certainly have great trouble looking back on a life like Sidney Gottlieb's.
Okay. Our thanks to Stephen Kinzer, Senior Fellow at the Watson Institute for International and Public Affairs at Brown University, former New York Times Bureau Chief for Nicaragua, Germany, and Turkey, and author of the new book, Poisoner in Chief, Sidney Gottlieb and the CIA's Search for Mind Control. This program has been part of the Commonwealth Club's Good Lit series.
Okay. And I know it was long. But guys, it was good, right? Wasn't that insane? So, key points. Since this is a long stream, I'm going to end it here in just a sec. But key points. Don't be like Richter. If you've been here from the beginning, you know who Richter is. If you were not in the beginning, watch Richter. Oh, sorry, my makeup. Watch the first video it played. And it's basically the OSS and how they conducted their research or their espionage on unsuspecting other espionage secret spies. Crazy. But anyways, there's a guy in there named Richter, and he kept on doing things wrong, and he did things wrong, like picking the lock too hard, and you're not supposed to do that. And he didn't look for the toothpick. This is the next thing. Always use a toothpick and never force a lock. That's what I wrote down. And don't fall for traps, right? All right, we got that. Another one. Sidney Gottlieb was a crazy son of a bitch. For real, he was. And of course, don't test the punch at the CIA parties, or else things will happen to you, more than likely. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. And real quick before I go, this is something that I thought of when I was listening to this, and I just got to share it with you. When you look into all these operations and all these things that the CIA did and created, they created some unique things. And one of them, this was during the OSS. Okay, so actually I should clarify. This was before the CIA became established. So before, and it was from the time we were watching that video when they were doing those clandestine operations. They had a project called Who Me. Now, some of you guys may know about it, some of you might not. It was also known as SAC-23 or Contaminator Stench. This was a top secret non-lethal chemical weapon project developed during World War II by the U.S. Office of Strategic Services, the precursor to the CIA, in collaboration with the National Defense Research Committee and the Office of Scientific Research and Development. The project began in 1943, inspired by a British Special Operations Executive SOE memo from August 4th, 1943, which shared details on their S liquid for creating odors of personal uncleanliness. OSS efforts ramped up in November 1943 and continued through 1945 with the first formula ready by February 1944 and revisions by late 1944. Okay, so there's a bunch of people, I'll skip over this, people that were in the original trials and testings. We had the Navy. There was this head scientist, chemist, Ernest Crocker, known as the million dollar nose. He's the one that formulated the scents. All right, now this is what they designed. They designed as a malodorant to humiliate enemy officers by making them smell like feces. That's right. And other repulsive odors, therefore demoralizing troops and undermining authority. Intended for resistance fighters in occupied territories, example, French resistance against Germans or Chinese civilians against Japanese, to spray or smear on targets obtrusively, exploiting cultural sensitivities like Japanese views on defecation as shameful. Also aimed at dispersing crowds, alarming targets, or contaminating supplies without lethality. So they're like, hey, I got an idea. Let's make fake poop. Or was it fake? You know what I mean? And this is so funny. This is just like the CIA. Let's do $1 million over here and $1 million over there, and let's have a bunch of scientists and let's create this stinky substance that looks and smells like poop. And then we'd be like, well, why don't you just use poop? Save us a couple $1 million. Like, come on. Okay, so targets and audience and variants. Initially, a universal formula. Let's make sure that I read this right. Okay, yeah. Initially a universal formula, but split into two, a European version for Germans with a fecal odor, and an Asian Pacific version for Japanese. This was distributed to the Chinese resistance, including children, with added cadaverous or skunky notes due to racist assumptions about cultural odor tolerances. So they made two stinky substances, one for the Chinese, we gave them to the Chinese to do to the Japanese, and then the other one, what was it? French and European Germans. Okay. So they added a little extra there. The Japanese variant was known as who? Me? Was stronger to account for perceived immunity to fecal smells. So saying that was the one. Oh, wait, hold on. It says it's the who me too. So like, can you imagine like somewhere, some CIA facility held a container, a vial, I don't know what it was, in a facility, and it was called Who Me 1, and then our latest version, Who Me number 2. That's intended to really tick the Japanese off. Like, oh my gosh, this is like, people should make movies of this, right? This is just so funny and crazy and everything. Okay. So those were their targets and the different variants. There's Who Me 1, Who Me 2, and the targets, which was the French and the Japanese. Okay. They have the chemical composition, which is crazy. It says core ingredients included skatol, fecal smell from gut bacteria, in-butyric acid, which was vomit/rancid butter. So they're already using it. So, oh my gosh, they may have used real vomit. Oh, that's so funny. Oh my gosh. Okay. V-velvic acid, foot odor, and caphoric acid, urine excrement. They put in amyl, I'm butchering these, but marcaption, which is rotten eggs, and alpha ion, which is cadaverous rotting body, which was created for the Japanese variant. What the fuck? Okay. Formula is created and persistent, unidentifiable stench, blending vomit, rotten eggs, rancid butter, excrement, foot odor, and urine, resistant to rain, and it was resistant to soap and solvents. Oh, now that's where they got it. That's where they got us, was that. Because I was like, oh, well, whatever, just wash it off. Oh, no. They made it resistant rain. Sure, just water. Like water won't make it go down. But soap and then solvents. So this is some strong, stinky, whatever it is. Okay, this is the delivery methods. And guys, then I'll go. And if you like this stream, please give me a thumbs up because I really appreciate it. And I think it is a good stream. It's got a lot of information in it. And it's funny. So delivery methods, this is what they did. They issued in pocket-sized squeezable. Okay, hold on. Issued in pocket-sized squeezable 2-ounce lead or brass tubes. Okay. So like a little tube. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so it's holding it. Oh, I lost my spot. Okay. Liquid or paste form? Like, now I see where this is going. Would you like the liquid form or the paste form? Like the liquid, I could probably like do like a little squirt bottle. You like sit next to like a prime minister, like, you know what I mean? Like, right? Would that be funny? Okay. Yes. Right here, it says for squirting. Oh my gosh. Liquid form for squirting from 10 feet. Early prototypes included gelatin capsules pierced with a pin or perfume atomizer. Oh, so it starts coming out. Atomizer style devices. Later additions like rubber, paper, or cloth hand shields prevented backfire. So that means sometimes it didn't go so well out in the field when they were shooting when they were, you know, and then like, oh, it got back on them. Oh my gosh. Okay. The gelatin, I don't know how that went. So, okay, they made these cloth hand shields. Thank God. Required silent operation, inconspicuous design. So these are the cells, guys, and at least 2 hours of odor persistence at 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, that's a cell. I mean, did they actually like market this as a weapon to other countries too? We have the Who Did It version 2. Oh, it's so funny. Okay, so let's see. Testing and challenges. Okay, organoleptic tests at Arthur D. Little evaluated dozens of blends. July 1944, the OSS tested by Major Jeffries showed 12% leakage on arrival. They even wrote down data that said when we received them, they were popped and it smelled like shit everywhere. Oozing in the heat and backfiring in 1/3 of attempts. Oh no! Oh man, I think I'd sign out of that gun. I don't think I want that one. Yeah, if it's 1 out of 3, that isn't good. Not at all. Okay. This is funny. Yes, so it contaminated the agents. Maryland Research Labs confirmed operator exposure. Final 1944 tests on 95 shielded tubes passed through handling, aging, tropical/Arctic storage with minimal related issues. So then they're like, no, we'll test it. It can be good through all the issues all the types of weather out there. Persistent problems included volatile sulfur compounds sticking to sprayers, fragile containers, and leaks. That's always the leak. Oh, and leaks within the warehouses. Oh, bro. No. Okay. And for the production and distribution, federal laboratories produced 9,000 units. Where were all these used? And like, I mean, this is funny, right? I looked this up because I already knew of this story, but it's like, this is a lot more than I had before. So it's so funny. Okay. So the OSS ordered 10,000 tubes urgently, 500 tubes of each formula. Get us that Who Me number 2. 100 tubes never shipped. Resistance fighters hesitated due to self-contamination risks. They resisted. No, I will fight your war. Give me a regular gun. I do not want your poop gun. Like, get it away. Outcome and reasons for the failure. Deemed a short-lived experiment. Yeah. Lasting only weeks in some accounts due to control difficulties. Never widely deployed. only on themselves. Or used in combat as the war ended with atomic bombings. Yeah, that doesn't doesn't even compare. In August 1945, before shipment. So the cultural, I lost my spot. Ineffectiveness for the Japanese led to revisions, but technical flaws, which were again user contamination and leaks, and timing rendered it obsolete. Viewed as comic relief amid deadlier OSS projects, highlighting psychological warfare, innovation despite impracticability. I don't even know if I said that right. But dear Lord, and this is around that same time, so that's so funny. So don't get the fart gun from the CIA, fart, urine, throw up gun. I don't know. It said stomach something. I don't. Oh, the fluids. I see it. Yeah. Anyways, I asked Grok. This is so funny. I'll leave it with this because you guys will like this. How come I can't remove this? Share screen. Let's go. Okay. I asked Grok to make me a picture of this. And this is what it gave me. This is them making the poop serum. I hope it was worth it. Apparently it fired back. Wait, hold on. Hold on. 1 second. Picture of the actual device. Okay, let's see what we got. I think I might know who created fart spray. Okay. Oh, but this is not the actual device. I guarantee this is not the actual device. Come on, Grok. You have failed me. Oh, it's because I didn't spell actual right. Hold on. Okay. But maybe not. I don't think so. I think Grok could have figured that one out. Where's my writing? Give me a picture of the actual. Hold on. Who, me, delivery device. How do I spell device? Let me see. Oh, I guess, yeah, guys, I kind of suck at spelling. But I want to actually see what this looks like before we go, because oh, okay. Now, I think these are definitely AI created, but this would look along the lines of what we're looking for. They said that it was aluminum, or what was it? What did it say? Copper? It said something, but look at that, the little thing in the spray. Stay back. I'll get you. Oh my God. They had leakage problem, guys. Oh my gosh. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. This shows you a lot of the things that our freaking intelligence agency has been involved in. A lot of terrible things, and a lot of retarded things, as we see. And yeah, Sidney Gottlieb, he's a very interesting character. Thank you, Ginger. DEVICE. What did I spell it like? Oh, I did DIVICE. Yeah. Okay. It's device. Thank you. I'll try to remember that. But yeah, Sidney Gottlieb, very interesting character. And I like how the guy was saying, and by the way, the man that wrote that book that, we were watching, I do not agree with him on how he goes, oh yeah, well, yeah, clearly it stopped, whatever. I mean, he's kidding himself. He should also know that, right? Because yeah, we don't have the paperwork for what it changed into. They were smart last time. Well, kind of. They tried to burn it. So what do you think they do with the data now? So it's definitely, I think they definitely have projects like that going on, black projects. My hope is that those agencies, specifically the CIA, will be like a true dismantling. And I'm assuming Trump will get to that. I'm assuming he will, because Trump very much has investments, even in JFK, the family, and his friendship. And I think at one point he made a promise. Who was it? Was it the guy that the George magazine? What's his name? The son. Anyways, he promised supposedly to him that he'd figure out who killed his father. So I don't know. I don't know if that's just hearsay, but just, and everything's connected. The CIA, I guarantee, took him out at the time. I think Bush Sr. was involved. I think Bush Sr. and all of those people have been the family cabal, the group. They're the United States Illuminati group, right? But nonetheless, I think there's a new man in town. But as far as the CIA's history in the past here has been up to no good. And it's important to understand, if that's what they were doing then, what are they doing now? What are they capable of? And there, I guarantee, are black projects going on and operations all the time. The deep state is able to control certain aspects of our government, no matter who's in there, per se, as the president, I would say. But it just depends. It's like a game. It's a game, really. It's not a game, because people can really get wounded and hurt and injured and killed. But there are strings that can be pulled. However, I do see the Trump administration knowing those strings and finding them one by one and cutting them. So it's pretty exciting to see that. But I hope you guys enjoy the stream, and give me a thumbs up if you like it. And watch out. Remember to put a toothpick in your door, so you know what the CIA came by. No, but really, I think that would be fun to do. I want to do it. And don't fall for traps. So if somebody takes a letter, I don't even have it, but you guys laugh. If somebody, you're rummaging through secret stuff, and then you pull a letter out, and then, but they secretly made it so the letter was a little bit out. But you pull it out, and you looked at it, and you put it back, but you put it all the way back in. Freaking don't be like Richter. If you're rummaging through people's stuff, put it back the way it looked. But I hope you guys have a good night, and I will see you next time. And yeah, and definitely, write comments underneath too. For my Let's Talk shows, I do like if you guys write comments, because then I could talk about those next time. And I'm going to hopefully make an actual schedule when I go live here, so everybody knows. So everybody's like, okay, this is when Abby goes live. So I'm going to try to do that. I'm just my personality, it's hard for me to do these things. But, I do it with Badlands Media, so I can make it work here. So I love you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. And I will see you next time. And let me find an outro. Toothpicks. Where are my manners? You guys are so sweet in chat. Steph Gray, God bless. Thanks you for such a good stream. Where we go one, we go all. I love that. Much love, Blue Eyes. Thank you for sharing your research. Yeah. Thank you. I'm glad you like it. There's so much more. There's so much more. I'll go through things. That's why we're learning to get it too. I come across these things like, holy crap, like a fart gun. That's great. And where we go all. Yeah, good to see you with the American flag. Let's go. Lead or brass? Yes, I think they were. Oh, lead. It was lead or brass. Oh, okay, I twisted the wrong numbers. Grace says, I think I may know who created the fart spray. I wasn't. Probably Gottlieb. Is it? Was the original flag. Yes. I mean, honestly, like nowadays, us girls have like perfume bottles, but they don't seem to leak. I don't know why they couldn't figure it out. Like, unless that was some powerful. I mean. Just like what happened to the guy with the LSD, like one little drop. Like, well, yeah, awesome. It's a great story. I never really heard it told that way. Poor man. Yes, that's great. I'll be praying for you. That's always hard when you lose people. And then earlier when I was just like, oh, because that hit me, I was very surprised. And just want you to know, I will be sending up prayers for you and for your family. And you lost some, but you're not alone. And yeah, I will catch you guys next time. Thank you so much. And please remember to leave the comments below. I appreciate it.